As well.
I'm almost positive.
Good afternoon, and welcome to our Glendale City Council workshop. This meeting is for council members to review and discuss important issues, projects, and future council meeting agenda items. It's a work-study session only and allows the council to hear input from city staff. No action will be taken at this workshop, and there will not be an opportunity for public comment. This meeting is streaming live on Glendale's Facebook and YouTube pages and the city's cable television station, Glendale Channel 11. Thank you for joining us.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Glendale City Council workshop session of December 9, 2025. Meeting is called to order. All members are here and present, so if you'd take note of that, we're not going to call attendance because they don't need to. Ms. Bauer, if you would, get us started with item number 1.
Downtown Campus Reinvestment Project Update.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. Here to provide update number 38 on our downtown campus project is Eddie Garcia, city architect.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. On behalf of the team, this is our update for December 9th. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to definitely go over some of the site progress, some aerial photos that you haven't seen in a little while. But we will spend a little bit of time talking about the latest design update for the gazebo. And we will be seeking direction, at least consensus, on that item today. And then finally, we'll walk you through how we're proceeding with the current schedule and next steps. So that's the agenda for today's presentation. So just from a virtual point of view, we didn't have a video to share with you today, but we had some overhead shots that we took about 2 weeks ago and that flew around at least the City Hall tower and the council and the amphitheater area. So what you're seeing now is a south aerial. And work is now in progress on the south facade. That green area that you see on the glazing side, that's the area that was designated for art to be installed. In the interim, it'll be a finished skin. We call it EFIS. It's an exterior insulation finish system. It's essentially a synthetic stucco system that'll be put on the building that maintains the thermal value, protection, etc. So that's going to be a complete skin for that facade here shortly. And they're proceeding as we speak. So we have scaffolding up, and they're actually in the second or third coating of the system. Just immediately below that, you can see a lot of planter work that's been done. You can see the site walls there associated with that. And then to the lower left of the photograph, that's the new entry plaza that leads people from the garage into the main entrance of the facility. What you're seeing is the top of the existing tunnel that takes you from the lowest level of the garage into the garden level. So all of that will be readdressed with new finishes and planting that surrounds it. As you move in a clockwise fashion now, heading towards the southwest side, there's more EFIS work that's going on the first floor, so you can see some of the scaffolding there on the lower left-hand side of the photograph. But generally, the skin is in good shape. If there's anything left to do on the skin, it's primarily just some minor details to close things up. But most of the work now is at ground level outside of the south facade. Moving to the north, same kind of work. We're going to still do some EFIS installation, stucco finish on the first floor. You can't really see it in the shadows here, but on where the back of the link or the bridge is, there's a 2-story high space, and that is all being glazed as we speak. So that's the last of the curtain wall that's being installed on the north facade. So once that's complete, basically all of the glazing will be done. The entire skin will be buttoned up, and we'll be moving into the end of the calendar year with all of those things completed. Only thing we'll be missing is some doors and some of the hardware associated with the aluminum storefront. And then back around to where the amphitheater is, the northeast aerial view. Everything you see in the foreground, you'll see some concrete to the right side of the picture, and then on to the left, it's mostly exposed soil right now. But that's the area that's going to be filled in with a hardscape plaza, and that'll be part of the extension of the circulation from Murphy Park to the front door of the facility. So that's coming. All the grading is in place. Speaking of grading, the amphitheater bowl is well underway now. In the last couple weeks, we've actually have proceeded with framing all of the permanent bench seating. What you're seeing here is the tiers that were cut to start the footings and all of the the framing of the seating. We have had to deal with a little bit of the moisture and the rain that happened in the last month and a half. So far, we're holding schedule, although it did, cause a little bit of some delays with getting the site prepped. One of the things that I have to give credit to our general contractor, Oakland, is they took it upon themselves early on to actually cover the whole area in plastic so they could protect it from any of the heavy rains that were coming. That was quite a bit of work for them to do. They did it. It actually did save them some time. So it's fantastic. So what you're seeing here put them in a really good position once things dried out. So it's exciting because now you're starting to see how the amphitheater is taking shape. And the mound that you see behind will eventually be cut a lot lower, so that'll be the lawn area. So everything in the foreground will be more of the hardscape seating. Moving into the interior, we're going to go through level 1 to 4 quickly here. So most of the ceiling work and the HVAC systems are now done throughout. The majority of the tower is complete. This level is still hanging on because we're still moving a lot of big pieces through the lobby area, but the bracing is going to have a glazing system that frames that, and you can start to see some of the tracks and things on the bottom. If we go to the second floor, from here on up, we are starting to see much more finished work. So you'll see carpet, ceiling, lights, everything's starting to be connected. In fact, if you drive by the site, sometimes in the evening, or if you're very, very much early bird person driving through the city, you'll see some of the lights on. So it's nice to start to see how the building is going to be more visible at night now, from months of being in the dark and a skeleton for several months before that. As you move up to level 3, again, more finishes are in place. Carpet's now down. Everybody's walking around with little booties on their feet so that we don't leave any stains or anything like that. So it's hanging on in good shape. You can start to see that the ceilings are really close to being done. It's just a matter of time between finishing up storefronts and installing doors. Here's an example on the 3rd floor. This is the city manager's suite. So you can see how the tracks have now been laid for the entrances to their offices. Again, all the ductwork and lighting is now in place. It's just a matter of laying in the ceiling tiles and hanging doors. While that's going on throughout the entire tower from top to bottom, there's just some support we call core building features. So electrical rooms, telephone closets, things like that. The telecom closets are all being built out right now. The photograph is in the center. This is where all the racks are put in for the IT systems. I wish I had a nice trivial thing to add as far as the amount of cable that's in this building, but there's quite a bit. I don't know how many miles it would add up to, but there's quite a bit of cable. You can see a gentleman on the right side here just laying down and connecting things from point A to point B. And then things like the water fountains and so forth for drinking, they're all in place now. Some of the bench seatings that are associated with those cores are in place too. 4th floor is the most complete floor. They're hanging doors as we speak. Ceilings will be in short order. But this is an example of the cove lighting. If you look to the upper right-hand corner of the photograph, you can see a light that's in the cove, and that light goes around the majority of the perimeter, and it's really to help highlight the circulation. But it also, at night, will be a nice line that you can see on every single level of the office tower. And once we light the crown, it'll all start to come together as an idea. So these are not color-changing light bulbs, but this is just part of a reflective light system that we have to help with wayfinding in the building. Also on level 4, this is just an example of where the hoteling spaces are going to go. So the cove that you see on the left-hand photograph is a station set up for employees or folks that are coming in that are either from other sites, other places in the city that just need a place to touch down and work. The rest of the opening, if it's not in an office, will be workstations. And then on the right side is the North Stair skylight. That's now completed. So it's just finished work from that point on. We're going to jump down to the garden level. And this is the call center area. This is it's going to hold about 19 to 20 folks in workstations, and we've got some glazing that goes around the perimeter to bring in some light. But this just shows you that most of the production drywall is now complete on this level. It's basically set up for priming and priming painting and the beginning of finishes. Immediately adjacent to that space, right next door to it actually, is the boards and commission space, and and what we're calling our gallery wall. So if you look at the right-hand photograph, that's immediately adjacent to the boards and commissions spot. This wall continues into the council suite, which is the picture on the left. So the city and the staff have been working with a group called the Glendale Legacy Project. And so that group is essentially head up by some ASU researchers and support from the Bonsall family. So this is to help promote the legacy and the historic elements of Glendale, and to culminate this when they be able to have these artifacts on display placed on this gallery wall. So this was something that we originally designed well into the early part of programming. We knew at some point in time that we were going to need spaces like this in the building. So we have toured with folks from ASU, the Bonsall family, et cetera, with staff. They're very happy about the location of this gallery wall and very comfortable with the infrastructure. And we don't foresee any additional cost or anything associated with it from our end to support it. But this is really nice because you'll be able to walk from the entire corridor into your suite and back and forth, including right off this corridor is also your conference room space as well. So as you bring guests into meetings with you, you can take them down this corridor and they'll learn a bit more about the city. So we're excited about that. Something you haven't seen in a long time either is a chambers lobby. So this is your new lobby. You can see there's a lot more glazing now. Ceiling space is just all pretty much simplified. What you're seeing there is the mechanical system that will be filled in with diffusers, but it's now pretty much a 180 view of the bridge and the city hall and the courtyard just below it. So this will be just the lobby outside of chambers. Moving to the park, a couple things we wanted to talk to you about the park. So most of the demo work has now been completed, with the exception of a small area that leads to the entrance of Velma Teague Library. That was by design because we wanted to make sure we kept the library open and accessible throughout the entire construction. We do have one caveat, and that is starting on January 5th, we're going to have to remove the sidewalk and build what's going to be the new entry sequence. So we've coordinated this with the director of community services and the library team to have the library go dormant, or at least closed, from the period of January 5th to the first week of March. I think it's March 2nd is the date. We need that 8-week period to do not only the exterior work surrounding the hardscape, but also our field ops team is going to go in and do some HVAC repairs, which is great timing because a lot of this stuff is for the cooling season. So now that we're in the off season, and we wouldn't have to disrupt the patrons of the library or the staff and employees. So this is a safe way to do it. We would like to exceed that timeline if we can. So it's not the full 8 weeks if we don't have to, but we want to be conservative enough just in case, because there's always a few things that could spring up and we want to make sure we can handle. So we want to communicate that. And then we wanted to talk to you about the gazebo. So switching gears now to more of a design element. The last time we were here, we talked about the gazebo and we received some great feedback about how we could improve upon the design of the gazebo. So it started from the core of it was essentially being more traditional in form, a layout that is such that maybe had a reduced number of entrances to it. So I think the comment was, can we get it down to maybe 2 versus 3 entrances? And so there was an ADA entrance and now a single entrance, and this is what we're proposing. We talked a little bit about 3 different kinds of functions: an ensemble or musical ensemble situation, an oratory or proclamation type situation, or something more ceremonial, possibly like a wedding ceremony or something that's officiated. So those are sort of 3 distinct scales of activities that we wanted to tune the design to more carefully. So what you're seeing here in this little schematic construction document version is a structure that's much more simplified from before. It's not a shade structure anymore. This actually has a roof form. We've added more columns, cylindrical columns. This is a steel structure. The roof is a perforated metal panel. It's very similar to what you've seen at Fire Station 153 and a few other locations in the city. It allows some light to penetrate. It's not necessarily meant to keep rain out completely, but we've got such great weather all the time. To have this veil above is really, we think, is exciting, and it would look fantastic at night. There's an oculus that's open to the sky at the top. You can see it on the lower left-hand plan design. But essentially, its scale and its presence, we felt, was appropriate to the park design and a complementary in its design to the amphitheater pavilion. This will sit just to the northeast corner of the site, just beyond the corner of Belmetigue, but right at that, between that intersection of 58th and Glen Drive. So I want to show you a little bit of how this sits in plan. My apologies, I don't have an overall site plan in your deck today. But the ring that you see, the arc that you see that's part of the circulation ring that goes around the entire library and then connects to the amphitheater and the entrance of the City Hall building. What you're seeing here is the gazebo in the center, an access ramp for ADA immediately adjacent to its left, and it engages that walkway. And that walkway is at least 15 to 20 feet wide. I think it's 15 feet minimum. This scenario is that I'm going to show you 3 of the plans that describe the uses first, and then I'll show you the 3-dimensional renderings depicted for each scheme. So for the band ensemble, you could look at 30 to 40 people in the lawn area, that lawn panel. And so you can see where the entrance is immediately off that intersection. And then there'll be a railing around the perimeter of the gazebo itself. For more of a proclamation type setup, the stairs being there more formal, you can see how an audience could gather, just a small group could gather and not affect any of the circulation around. And then last is a ceremonial idea. So if something was being officiated like a wedding and a number of seating you could fit in. So those are the 3 examples that I think you wanted us to investigate. So starting with the band ensemble, this is the architect's version of a rendering of how it would feel in place. So there is a guardrail. It sits about, right now I think it's about 36 inches. We're looking at maybe shortening it to be maybe 30 inches tall. The platform is about 1'6" above grade. You can see the ramp is just very subtle. We don't need to provide any guardrails for that. But you can get an idea for the planning and the scale and then just the roof form. So that in itself having its more of the traditional iconic gazebo form. And then moving to the proclamation idea, you can see, again, a different angle. This is at the intersection of the ring and the pathway that takes you to the corner of 58th and Glen Drive. And then if it was ceremonial, you could see how we can make arrangements for seating or for guests, and then the officiating itself. Again, one singular entrance for at the stairs, and then one for the accessible ramp. And then at night, we think there's an opportunity here to have it be in sync with the park lighting. These would be color-changing light fixtures that be programmed with a remote panel. Our goal would be having, especially at night, to be more safe, is to have it lit up. We were looking at schemes to provide up and down lighting so that we can make sure that the ground plane is lit as much as the roof is. But you can see the effect of the perforated roof panel to add a little bit more of character to the roof form, even at night. And then we'll have some power associated with the gazebo. Obviously, we want to protect it and be secure with its access. But this could be an opportunity for, from the park side of things or special events, to manage the rental, the use and rental of it, and be able to adjust accordingly when there's an event. So I want to pause here for a minute and see if there's any feedback you'd like to add before I move on to the updates.
I'd just like to say that it's beautiful. I'm really happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you. As we see on the first and second slides, actually for several slides, what at this point looks like fencing around the air conditioning systems on the roof.
Mayor, Councilmember Turner, this is just open air. There's no fencing for mechanical on this at all.
I'm sorry, I was looking big picture.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the
Yeah.
back to the aerial photos.
Back to the office building, yeah, the City
Okay.
Hall building, aerial photos. So we have that.
Let's do this one.
Is that screening, that's a good word for it, is that screening eventually going to get more solid, or is it going to remain open like it is here?
Mayor, Council, Councilmember Turner, right now as it's designed, it's been installed per the design. It's not intended to get any more solid than that. We are looking at other ways to possibly give it more density to it. I will tell you that the team was challenged by a couple of constraints, sort of three main constraints. One was the mechanical systems and airflow within the roof structure. We needed to make sure we were providing enough air for that.
Right.
Two, it was, the height and weight, I guess that's 2 and 3, together, it was really important because we're trying to, we have to mitigate the wind loads, and we have to mitigate the amount of weight that this is added to the roof system. So we're trying to find that nice balance between all those three things. That said, we are going to explore some opportunities to see if we can dense up some of the areas. It may not be the entire fence, but it is a Z-styled profile. So depending on the angles you look from, like from the ground up, don't really, it's doing its job. From the oblique sides, it's doing its job. From a screening standpoint, what we're running into is if you look at it perpendicularly straight on, that's when you start to see a little bit more transparency. So if we were to recalibrate this, it would take a little bit more exercise on how to do that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're aware of it and share my concern as well. Thank you.
Mayor? Is it going to stay that color, or is it going to be the fence, or whatever you call it, the screens?
Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor, that is the color. That is the actual finish of the fencing material. It's the same design and profile and finish that you're seeing also on the garage stairs. The garage entries will have a little bit of that. That particular element is, I would say, it's more thematic on behalf of the design team as part of the design vocabulary of the entire project.
Okay, I was thinking it might be a little less noticeable if it was the same color as the building, but it's hard to really tell by looking at these pictures and I haven't really paid any attention to, I've never looked at it from the top until today, so, thank you.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for taking the feedback of the council on the gazebo. I think it looks great. And I know one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is I'd like to, in the future, not now, but in the future, ask the council for consensus to consider digital signage in Murphy Park. And so my vision is that we would have a digital sign right there next to the gazebo, so that folks could actually reserve the gazebo then and there on the screen, and then also that it would be a safety safety mechanism as well with a emergency alert button. And the company that we talked to is the IKE, and we're at the National League of Cities conference. Thank you, Mayor.
Thing here. If you could go back to the gazebo, I've got a couple things. I'll go to the next one. Next, right there. In those poles going up where they meet the Raptors, Councilmember Baldenegro is a welder, fabricator, as I have been in a past life. If we could just do a little extra with the 90-degree ornamental decorative irons in those corners, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, where it's got some sort of, it would really make that look a lot nicer. And if the bottom portion of the fence was more like help me out here, the white wood that you buy for decorative for like a trellis, like a lattice, if it was that way instead of straight up and down, I think it would look 1,000 times better. We had discussions earlier. You guys knew where I was at on some things. I don't think we got there, but right now, I think more of just those two minor things, I think could really dress this up dramatically, and I don't think that you would have hardly any difference in cost, if that makes any sense. And I can talk to you offline if you need.
Thank you, Mayor.
My other question, going back to Mr. Turner and Councilmember Tomachop's first discussion on that railing up on the roof. I don't know, it'd be worth just an experiment, but if you could go back to that picture again, back to the roof. I had noticed that quite a while ago from a distance, and you can see that equipment pretty easily. But what if some of the equipment, like the white square on the left-hand side, I don't know what piece of equipment that is, what if that had lines drawn on it? It would almost have the appearance that you have an additional fence up there. Does that make sense?
Mayor, yes, I understand where you're coming from on that. We just, for mayor and council and vice mayor, et cetera, we are looking at, potentially looking at a darker color for the outbuildings, if you will, as a potential to help with that. It does, depending on the angle, if you're standing from the Bank of America, for instance, it goes away. There is a bit of a Maury effect that happens with this design, depending on what angle you look at it, and it's essentially what you're describing. So we wanted to explore graphically how we could potentially change the background color a little bit so it kind of recedes a little bit. But, you know, outside of additive things, we're going to get pretty limited. So I think what we'd like to do as a design team is still explore some simple things additively, whether it's another element to close the spacing and not hurt the weight and the air requirements, or potentially another layer behind the screen, whether it's a fabric type or perforated panel, something that we can do to get more density to it, but not, again, affect weight in the air requirements.
Sure. And I would think one of the things that would be a huge concern is not necessarily a wind shear, but a wind load. Sometimes it's more dangerous, the suction part of the wind, than what's actually blowing against it. And that's the last thing we want is part of that fence to come flying off the roof. My thought is if you already have the structure there, and rather than adding extra metal or high cost, if you painted lines vertically behind the fence on that white wall and some of that other equipment, that might blend it in where you may not notice it, or at least notice it as much. But no, you're definitely on the same track that I am. Obviously, we don't want to put a bunch more weight up there. We don't want to put a lot of more expense up there either.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. On slide 3, when you're looking at the roof, kind of, you know, almost down at it, and you see those, I don't know if it's rust or dirt or what is that? That is kind
Stains on the
of
roof.
pulled up there from the rain. Is it washed off the equipment from the rain? What is that?
Mayor and council, vice mayor, yes, most of that is some of the dust and whatnot from construction. And we're working on trying to get all that cleaned up once all the stuff on the roof is completed. So, yeah, I mean, some of that is just when we had material up there and it rained and so forth. So good news is the drains are working. That's just some of the debris that's collected along the way. It's not impacting the performance of the roof or the finish of the roof. It's just, part of it is just some of the staining from materials and dirt.
You have a parapet wall that's not visible from the street anyway, correct?
It's not visible, Mayor and Council, it's not visible from the street.
Okay, so, but I mean, does that mean that the water was pooling in those places where the dirt accumulated, or what does that mean?
No, just as the Mayor and Council, as the roof was doing what it needed to do by moving water to those drain locations, it was just picking up some of the residue from the materials and dust and things that accumulated on the roof.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay, so we'll keep moving on. I'm assuming then that was consensus on the gazebo.
I like the mayor's ideas, though. When I was shown this the first time, I didn't care for that railing around the gazebo either. I know I mentioned that, and I think the idea of sort of more like a trellis, that a lattice would make that really look like a gazebo. So I think that's a really good idea.
Okay. Well, here we are, this is sort of where we are in progress and what to expect next month. So we're winding down on the calendar year. We've got quite a bit of work continuing on the interior, and we will have a lot of work to go on the interior. Most of that will be in the form of finishes and millwork and so forth. So the bullets are pretty straightforward. The elevators are almost ready to go. Once they're available, they're primarily going to be used for protected, but used for moving things up and down material-wise in construction. But a lot of work on the park and the amphitheater, so a lot of site work and grading and so forth are going to continue to go on. Next month, we're going to focus more on the garage and the stair entry enclosures. The west entry to the garage on the 59th side is being built right now, so that's an enhancement, primarily to help with identifying the entrance to the garage that was really difficult in the original design. Our IT team is working hand in glove with the IT installers and doing all the cabling, and now they're going to start looking at hardware infrastructure stuff that needs to be put in. So we're going to get more live equipment in place. Some of it's going to be temporary until the new stuff comes in, ahead of moving in, of course, but we want to make sure we can test things in advance. And then we're going to continue to get these floors ready to go. We use the term punch list. What that means is that we go and check to see the status of the installations of all the elements, ceilings, walls, et cetera, ahead of furniture delivery, so that we can have a good catalog of things that might need to be fixed or touched up on ahead of furniture being delivered. But we're going to start to receive furniture orders early in January. I think the first week is January 5th for the 4th floor, and then subsequently a couple weeks each time as we move down the building. So quite a bit of work to do between now and then, but we're keeping everything green right now. I did mention about the rains that we had in November, October. Right now we're managing things. If we get a decent-sized rainstorm, we might have a slightly different conversation, but that is not affecting any of the interior work or anything of the vertical work. It's just primarily the site work that it could affect. But we're hanging in there right now, and it's quite a bit of work. So that's our update for today, for this month, and I appreciate your time.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Garcia, just so that for the sake of the public, because I've received multiple inquiries, and I would imagine I'm not the only one about the cafe lights over Glendale Avenue and what the status is and why they're not on. So if you wouldn't mind.
Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor Tomilchoff, I have some limited information on it that I can share. Otherwise, I will have to defer it to the folks or the departments that might operate it. We understand there's power to those lights, but, and this is prior to work that we've been doing on the site, somewhere or another there's a disconnect in getting those lights activated on Glendale Avenue. We know there's power, but we can't figure out what's controlling them or why it's not turning on. So we just need to do a little bit more investigation on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
We're not doing item number 2. We are going to item number 3.
Proposed 2026 legislative agenda.
Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report is Gina Carrico, our Director of Intergovernmental Programs.
Great, thank you. I am honored to be here, honored to be here today to present your 2026 federal and state legislative agenda. Monday, January 12th will mark the opening day of the 57th Legislature's second regular session, and each year we come before you, Council, for approval of this agenda, which helps define the city's legislative priorities and helps us when deciding on how to weigh in on bills of interest at the Capitol. Before we get into an overview of government relations, a debrief of last session, and what to expect next year, we'll provide an overview of how our team works on behalf of the city to execute the legislative agenda in front of you today. I am very proud to call out at your place, there's a high-level one-pager intended to be used as a leave-behind for meetings with community partners and legislative leaders. We have an opportunity for questions at the end, but please feel free to interrupt at any time if there's something you'd like to discuss or I can help clarify. As this is my first time in front of you, I wanted to cover more in depth the mission of government relations, which is to advance and protect the interests of Glendale residents as represented by the mayor and council. Each of you serve tirelessly to advocate for your community in many ways, and shown here on this slide is a few examples of the federal, state, and regional entities in which Glendale has mayor or council representation. These roles are crucial to ensuring Glendale has a seat at the table during policy development, future planning, and regional coordination. Our team works under your leadership with each of these entities to ensure Glendale's priorities are represented and executed. We advocate for for Glendale's priorities at the federal, state, and regional levels. Old habits. Which is why this time of year you see less and less of us around City Hall. We are spending over half of the week between the State Capitol League and regional entities. I am the city's designated public lobbyist, and this registration allows me to legally register formal positions on proposed legislation and advocate on the city's behalf. With your support, I also manage specialized contractors at the federal and state level that assist us in successfully completing our mission. There is nothing more important in intergov roles than communication. We operate under the golden rule of no surprises. You might not always like what we have to say, but we want to be sure that you hear it directly from us. During the legislative session, we provide regular communication to mayor and council and weekly updates, and we are always available and accessible for one-on-one meetings with you or any other form that you prefer to receive your legislative news. We constantly coordinate with other city intergovs and staff from the League of Arizona Cities and Towns to review bills that impact local operations. Our strong engagement ensures Glendale's concerns are represented amongst our peers. Before we get to that meeting, the Glendale team reviews every bill as it gets introduced and seeks the input of the appropriate department director for more in-depth analysis. We engage with lawmakers, staff, and our counterparts to convey Glendale's position and work toward compromise where there is a path forward. In those circumstances where a compromise solution cannot be reached, we oppose bills that are a detriment to our primary tenet of protecting local control or otherwise do not align with our legislative agenda. Through all of these efforts, we constantly strategize with all of the stakeholders described, but most importantly, our Glendale team, from mayor, council, management, and all of our department leaders. We would not be as successful without all of these cogs working together to ensure our shared mission of a thriving Glendale. Glendale, as you know, is comprised of 3 congressional districts, CD3 represented by Yasamin Ansari, CD8 represented by Ave Hamada, and CD9 represented by Paul Gosar. Pictured here are the members as named of our delegation of the U.S. House of Representatives. And of course, Glendale also works closely with our statewide senators, Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego. On the legislative side, Glendale is comprised of 6 legislative districts listed on your slide, totaling 18 legislators from across the political spectrum. In Legislative District 22, we have Senator Eva Diaz, Representative Lupe Contreras, and Representative Elda Luna Nahara. In Legislative District 24, Senator Annalise Ortiz, Representative Lydia Hernandez, and Representative Ana Abetia. In Legislative District 25, Senator Tim Dunn, Representative Michael Carbone, and Representative Nick Cupper. Legislative District 26, Senator Flavio Bravo, Representative Cesar Aguilar, and Representative Quanta Cruz. In Legislative District 27, Senator Kevin Payne, Representative Lisa Fink, and Representative Tony Rivero. And in Legislative District 29, Senator Janae Shamp, Representative Steve Montenegro, and Representative James Taylor. Glendale and the West Valley are particularly fortunate to have so many members of our delegation in leadership roles at the Capitol. Representative Steve Montenegro as Speaker of the House, Representative Michael Carbone as House Majority Leader, LD 28 Senator Frank Carroll as the Senate Majority Whip, and Representative Quanta Cruz as the House Minority Whip. To give a quick recap of last session, during the 166 days of the 2025 session, 1,854 bills were introduced and 439 bills were sent to the governor's desk. Of those, 265 were signed into law and 174 were vetoed. As of January 1 of this year, Glendale and many other cities across the state had to grapple with the loss of residential rental tax. With tight budget constraints and the loss of millions this cut created, Last session, cities band together with mayors and leaders from across the state to negotiate a deal on food tax so that the Arizona voters can decide on the 2026 November ballot if they'd like to freeze existing food tax rates and require any increase up to 2% to be approved by the local jurisdiction's voters. We are very grateful to our legislative leaders for coming to the table to negotiate a fair compromise without automatically cutting city revenue or services. Over the last couple of years, Glendale has led the way in enforcing the importance of local planning in the development and zoning process. We continue to see legislation from the home builders that solely seeks to deregulate by allowing development by right without resident council or planning input. And in lieu of this one-sided approach, cities, through the Arizona League of Cities and Towns, continue to compromise on proposals that improve and streamline development processes. We're also very proud of the passage of Senator Carroll's Sober Living Home Bill championed by the West Valley, including Glendale leadership. This bill will help our public safety officials in addressing fraudulent and unlicensed sober living home facilities in our neighborhoods by instituting transparent licensure requirements, standards, and penalties for violations. Overall, as we head into the next legislative session, on your screen is a synthesized version of the city's legislative principles. Grounded in these principles approved by mayor and council, the city will seek to protect local revenue, safeguard local decision-making and Glendale's high quality of life, preserve our water and infrastructure planning, and promote responsible economic development, along with ensuring the continued success of Luke Air Force Base. Upon a majority consensus from this council, these broad principles allow me to weigh in appropriately on bills that may impact Glendale. As we head into the 2026 session, the state is bracing for another challenging budget cycle, as one of the primary issues they must address will be conforming with federal law and tax changes made under H.R. 1, the Big Beautiful Bill. If the legislature conforms with all of the tax changes, the state is estimating a general fund impact of $438 million, an estimated reduction of shared revenue to Glendale of over $3 million. With that as a baseline, it will be more important than ever that we are avoiding any future sweeps or reductions in local revenues. While political fatigue may hinder continued efforts to explore by right zoning, we do anticipate continued conversation about narrowing this focus to certain development categories like churches. Yes, in God's backyard, or YIGB, will continue to be an effort to allow by right zoning on church properties. In addition to that, we anticipate continued efforts to eliminate design review, even when done administratively, and efforts to exempt historic areas from the middle housing requirements. In addition to these conversations, Glendale will support ongoing reforms related to sober living home regulation and oversight, as well as accountability frameworks for service providers that allow for balanced, enforceable solutions that respect local authority, ensure provider accountability, and protect vulnerable individuals while maintaining community safety. One item not on the screen but of importance to mention is ongoing debates about data centers and statewide tax incentives following an executive order from President Trump in July related to accelerating federal permitting of data center infrastructure. And with Governor Hobbs and members of the legislature running for re-election in 2026, we are always optimistic that will incentivize a shorter session to allow more time to hit the campaign trail. Glendale has also been a leader in community engagement. Through some of the resources listed on this slide and the strategic engagement of council, we will continue to identify ways to improve and enhance the leadership and image of the city at the state and federal level. As always, I want to thank you for your continued support and leadership. Your reputations and relationships help us ensure the continued success of the city, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jen, I have one question for
Yes.
you. You'd mentioned the food tax will be coming up this year. Will that be two questions or one question?
Mayor, at this time, at least the way that it's structured right now, it would be one question on the ballot.
And if that fails, then it just stays the way it is today?
Correct.
If it passes, then people would limit the cap at 2% for their food tax, but it would also give cities that are less than 2% the opportunity to get theirs up to 2%. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, the only slight distinction is that all existing food taxes would be frozen at their current rates, even if they're over 2%. but anyone under 2% could take a vote to their people to get up to 2%.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It seems like that's, typically when you go to the voters, it's usually one question. And it seems like we got potentially 3 different things that they're voting on with one answer. I don't know if that's constitutional or not, but I guess they'll figure that out, right? We don't have to worry about it, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, if you go 1 or 2 slides back from where you're at, right there, whoa, right there. We're still using the old logo, we're not using the new logo?
Mayor, that is my fault and my learning curve.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Carrico. In addition to the effect that the HR 1 is going to have on cities, there's been an additional municipality incorporated in Arizona that should have some impact. Is that correct?
Mayor.
And state shared revenue. There's a new city, essentially.
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor Tolmachov, with the incorporation of Santan Valley, we're anticipating additional loss to shared revenue of just under $1 million to Glendale. Those numbers are not finalized. With the shutdown, I don't think there's been an opportunity to do a full census for Santan yet.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Who else? You have a question?
I just wanted to share a bit of information on that slide 18. And it would work better if I had my microphone down. Thank you. That's actually the city seal in the bottom, along with the state seal above it. And so for official business that the city's doing, the seal's probably the proper emblem to use. And then the logo is the more casual graphic sliding NG. And but I do believe that's the right seal to have. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor. So my question is in terms of elections reforms, what type of election reforms bills will be proposed in the legislature or are already being worked on?
Mayor, Council, Councilmember Conchas, nothing that I have on my immediate radar. Of course, as we contract with Maricopa County to conduct our elections, we will certainly make sure that Julie is involved and looped into anything that may impact local elections.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Glendale.
Thank you.
Solid waste commercial rate review.
Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report on item number 4 on the agenda is Michelle Watinko, Director of Field Operations.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are here today to talk about solid waste commercial rate review. So for the newer council members, our solid waste division of field operations is divided up to those services we provide to our residents and those services which are optional, which we offer to businesses. And residents can use them as well if you're doing a small remodel project. And Mr. Carr will go into that a little bit. But just we provide this commercial service to provide a cost-competitive option for Glendale businesses, and it's primarily small businesses. But I think the key word there is it's an option, so that nobody's forced into these services. This is an optional service we do provide. We are self-sustaining, so none of these revenues nor expenses are shared or augmented by general fund or anything like that. So what we're attempting to do is create a self-sustaining operation by doing this. There is no impact to our residents with anything we're suggesting today, so I want to make sure council is aware of that. And then we're proposing this now because we are seeing, we're observing an increase in our expenditures, which is outpacing our increase in revenues. So we're discussing with that today. This presentation was given to the Citizens Utility Advisory Commission last Wednesday, December 3rd, and we did receive their consensus to bring this as presented today to council. With me today is Michael Carr, our Deputy Director. He oversees our solid waste operations, and he's going to lead you through the majority of this presentation.
All right, thank you, Michelle. So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. During this presentation, we'll be providing overview and background of our commercial services and collections. We'll also provide an overview of some of the efficiencies that we are currently working on. We'll discuss the current cost factors, the current rate plan, and then we'll review the proposed commercial rate recommendations. So commercial service consists of two types of waste hauling and handling. We offer front-load dumpsters and roll-off containers. So as you see in the images, the front-load vehicle collects a dumpster from the front, and those can range in size from 2 yards, 3 yard, 4 yard, 6 yard, and 8 yard containers. Based on the last 5 years of data, we average approximately 1,075 accounts. This is all within city boundaries. And then for FY25, we collected over 35,688 tons of trash from dumpsters using front-load service. Roll-off collection containers are much larger. I'm sure you've seen them at construction sites and on large projects. We also use those at locations that have larger quantities of waste. They are picked up from the back of the truck, which is why they're called a roll-off. They're large bins that can be 20, 30, and 40-yard containers. For FY25, we performed 3,576 roll-off services and collected over 14,216 tons of refuse. Our commercial service is offered to businesses in order to provide a competitive option in the solid waste market throughout Glendale. Commercial services and rates do not have an impact on residential curbside services or rates. Just as a kind of overview of our operations, we are a Monday through Saturday operation. We average 5 front-load routes per day and 2 roll-off routes per day. On a daily basis, we average over 850 stops and approximately 5,100 stops per week. We offer various container sizes, as I mentioned, our 2-yard, 3-yard, 4-yard, 6-yard, and 8-yard front-load dumpsters, and then our 20, 30, and 40-yard roll-off containers. Customers are charged by the size of the container that they have and the number of times that container is serviced per week. So similar to our residential side of collection, when we came to you with our residential rate, we showed you some of the efficiencies we're working on. We're always looking for efficiencies in operating, collection, staffing, and budgeting. During fiscal year 25, we worked to optimize our routes by reducing collection frequencies and increasing the size of containers at each location. This has reduced the number of stops per day. In doing so, we've been able to reduce the time it takes to complete routes daily, which has resulted in less overtime each day. We're currently measuring that against last year's overtime amounts for the same time this year, and we'll be coming forward with some of those results hopefully in the near future. Some of the ongoing and current efficiencies we're working towards include reducing the number of collection routes on Saturdays. We're gradually reducing the number of routes from 5 routes to 2 routes. This will ultimately give us more flexibility in scheduling during the week, allowing us to cover sick leave, vacations, FMLA, and workers' comp. Again, this will reduce overtime over the next year. In addition to that, we're working towards making the equipment operators' jobs safer by reducing the risk of injuries or accidents. We are eliminating some of the high-risk locations that pose dangerous traffic conditions or have difficult collection access. In addition, we're transitioning away from the rollout services that we provide. These are containers that need to be pulled out manually from the enclosures. Some of them can weigh up from between 2,000 to 3,000 pounds each, which could lead to potential injuries for our operators. In addition to that, they do take up extra time to collect, so by phasing these services out, we hope to find efficiencies and make the job more safe for our employees.
Mayor, can I ask a question? Thank you. So are we going to be directing people who want to use a roll-off to the open market, essentially? Is that what the plan is?
Mayor and Council, Vice Mayor Tom Wilscoth. Everybody has that option today. Our roll-off services, are self-sustaining, but what Mike's going to show you later on is just some improvements we want to make to the rate structure. Roll-out.
Well, it says transitioning away,
So we're transitioning away from our rollout services. So if we've got bins in a location where they have to be manually pushed out, we're working with those businesses on how we transition the enclosure such that we can attempt to, but we're trying to transition out that rollout service.
Okay,
That's, we're working with our
The
customers. on how
confusion
to do
is the
that. Yeah.
front load
Yes, I got
compared
it.
to a roll-off.
Yeah, Mike corrected me, so.
okay, thank you.
Mayor.
But
Yes, Mayor and Council, I have a question about these efficiencies, and good job on the efficiencies. So in terms of, and you're going to get into this in the future, how much savings have we had from these efficiencies?
Sorry, Mayor, Councilmember, on which side, on which portion of it are
I-
you referring to?
what they're suggesting is we approve them to make we haven't had them yet. So, does that answer your question? Okay. Maybe you answer a few more of what you have there, it might answer some of our questions.
Okay, so we showed council a similar slide for the residential rate presentation. These are the major cost factors that have been affecting the commercial service. As you can see, we're seeing the same increases in diesel fuel from 2022 to current. We had a 47% increase in costs. Our insurance costs, which include risk, fire liability, and workers' compensation, follow the same trend as residential service, with an increase of 58% from FY22 to current. Commercial has also had an increase in ADQ fees, which is the charge per ton that the state charges for waste that is collected, is increased by 71%. One of the bigger expenses for us has been our vehicle costs. These have increased significantly since 2022. A front-load collection truck increased by $173,000, representing a 51% cost increase. As you are aware, with our CIP, our vehicle replacement cost is the bulk of our capital, so these increases have greatly affected our capital. And salaries and benefits have also increased by 28% over that time. In combination with that, so Councilmember Conscious, we were discussing the overtime savings. We are evaluating the hours that we have saved in overtime, comparing that to the dollar amount. It's kind of, we're trying to kind of maintain a relative flatness of dollar amount by reducing the number of hours that are actually used for overtime. So we'll bring something forward with that deeper evaluation.
Mayor, can I ask a question about that? Yeah, and I get, my question too is, I think you'll get into this, but so fiscal year 2022 actual, fiscal 2025 actual, and then the difference. And we've also had rate increases in between those. So this is the difference, but some of those rate increases have paid for these differences. Is that correct?
Mayor and Council, that's correct, but at the beginning, I think I did state that what we're seeing is our expenditures right now, our costs are outpacing our projections, and so our revenue is not increasing at the same rate that our expenditures are, and that's why we want to come to you today with a proposed change to our rate structure.
Thank you.
So the current front-load rate structure is based on a 2010 rate study that was performed by a consultant. The rate offers 3 tiers of rates depending on how many containers a customer has and where they're located. The rate decreases for customers who have more than 2 bins and decreases again for having more than 5 bins. This was based on kind of the trend at the time, which was attracting larger businesses by offering them a discounted rate, and which then kind of shifts the burden to the smaller businesses that have less bins and less service locations. In addition to that, there were various fees. The fees range from the size, we mentioned the size of the container and the number of services per week. And there's various additional fees related to opening and closing gates, rollout service, which is a dumpster or front load dumpster that's on casters when they need to be pulled out of the enclosure. We have had annual percentage increases since our FY25. We did a 5-year rate increase, which have been percentages. But those rate increases were not tied back to cost of operations, and we're now recognizing that the increases are not matching the increase that we've had in our expenses. So this slide represents the council-approved commercial rates. In January of 2022, council approved a 5-year rate adjustment. The goal was to make sure that commercial operations were self-sustaining and that residential services and customers were not subsidizing commercial service. So the first rate adjustment of 10% was effective in March of 2022. All the subsequent rate increases you see on the chart above the red line took place in January for each year. And then we currently still have a planned increase of 5% in January of 2026. So the image on this slide is the actual current rate structure for commercial service. So one of the issues with the current model, as I mentioned, is that it was designed to attract larger volume customers. So the lower the cost, the lower cost or for large customers doesn't actually cover the cost of operations. So the discount that we're providing for the larger customers isn't actually covering the service that we're providing. So in this example, each circled rate represents 6 cubic yards of waste being serviced at different intervals. As you can see, a small 2-yard container being serviced 3 times a week, the cost is $153.26. The same 6 yards of service in a 3-yard container being serviced twice a week costs $99.20 a month, and a single 6-yard container being serviced once per week costs $80.88. We know that in our operations, we have fixed rates of service, and one of those being the number of yards and how much it costs to dispose of those yards. So seeing the same cost across that scale shows us that the price is not covering what our actual expense is.
Can I ask you a question? You know what your costs are, what your labor is, insurance and fuel and trucks and maintenance and all that. And you know what we're charging. What is the competition charging? Where are we at in that picture? Are we about the same? Are we just a little bit lower? Are we just a little bit higher? Where are we at?
Okay, Mayor, it's a great question. It is difficult to pinpoint what their costs are. All I can do is benchmark against other cities because we are open and transparent with our rates. Private industry can change the rate based on enticing a service or bringing in a new customer. They can change the rates. Something that we hear quite frequently is that the rate that they received when they were brought in changed significantly after years of service from that company, and then they will revert back to coming back to the city of Glendale for service. So we kind of set the benchmark, I feel, for what the service level is and what the cost is, and then the private companies will come in and either provide a discounted rate, or eventually they get to a rate where they're higher than what we are. So as I mentioned, we do provide this service to kind of offer a fair and competitive price in the Glendale market, and I feel that the proposed rate we're going to be showing you is going to get us there.
And I understand people lowballing the price. That's just a custom practice, normal practice. I think you probably could get fares if somebody shopped it a little bit, spend a little bit of time. But what I don't want to do is give the service away and fill our landfill up. Don't want to wear out our equipment just for the sake of getting the business and somebody else not. I don't know how we compare to other cities if other cities don't have their own landfills. So we have how many cities that use ours? 2 or 3? Do we compete against them when they're paying us to use our landfill?
Mayor, we don't compete against other cities within
price
city.
comparison. I'm sorry. I missed.
Mayor, yes, we do compare our prices against other cities.
The very ones that are using our landfill. Okay.
We benchmark against them, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We attended the Work City celebration earlier today, and we are a data-driven organization. And you said that there were customers that had left the city of Glendale, went to private, then came back. How many of returning customers do we have?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, I do not have that data in front of me, and I don't want to give you a incorrect number, so I can get that information for you.
And just one follow-up question. Since the rates have increased since fiscal year 2022, how many commercial accounts have we lost?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, I do not have that information as well. I do know that we average 1,075 customers per year. We do track that information. I just don't have an exact number. We haven't seen any significant decrease in customers since I've been here in 4 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So these slides where you're showing the current rates, do we build in our, I mean, essentially, like, we're passing on a tipping charge to the customer? Is that included in this rate? I know when other people use our landfill, you know, kind of, I think that what the mayor was getting at is, on top of outside agencies using our landfill, other cities, we charge them a tipping fee. So are we basically charging these customers, including our tipping fee, in what we're charging them?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Tomshoff. So yes, the rate includes a tipping fee. So we're charging or we're recovering that fee on top of what the landfill is charging the solid waste department. So there are two separate funds, and landfill recovers their cost. The commercial operations has to recover its cost of depositing that material at the landfill. So yes, it's built into the fee.
Mayor, if I could, how long has it been since we've adjusted tipping fees? It seems to me that it's been quite some time.
I'm sorry, Mayor, Vice Mayor, for landfill? Mm-hmm. We just readjusted those, what was it? It was in the past year, but I want to say February of 25?
Of what we're adjusting, what we're charging outside customers, tipping
Correct.
fees? We did that in 2025? Do you remember that? I don't remember that either. I know we adjusted our residential rate structure, but I don't recall. Okay, I'll have to go back and I'd like to have that information, because I know, you know, I mean, I understand the reason why we charge tipping fees and why we let other people use our landfill. Obviously, it's a huge, important asset, because when the landfill's full, now we're going to have to be somebody else's customer. So, I mean, the longer we preserve the landfill, and I can tell you, I have friends who live in King County, Washington, and Mr. Phelps probably, and they this is not even recycled, this is just for private companies, this is residential, solid waste, they pay $179 a month for that, just to pick up their trash. So, I mean, that's why, you know, we have to be really careful about balancing what the region needs to use for our landfill and making sure that asset lasts as long as we can. But I'd like to have a better breakdown of exactly what is the cost of providing the service and how much of this is the cost of putting it in our landfill. There's really more than one thing at stake here, including the, you know, the diesel and the people and everything else. There's also the cost of putting it in the landfill, which it doesn't show us what that is. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor?
Yeah, let me make a statement, then we'll go to you. I think my question is, when we get done, and we're talking about just the commercial, not our residential, are we making money at this? And if we're making money, do we know how much money we're making? Because if we're not making money, if we're just breaking even, paying our bills, then why do we do it?
So Mayor and Council, Mayor, specifically, that's the intent today. We're seeing that our expenditures are outpacing our revenues, the growth in them. And so we're getting very close to that. We want to make sure that our commercial services pay for themselves, including having reserve in case something breaks down or anything like that. So that's the intent of today. Mike has worked, and his staff have worked very hard on this presentation. What we recognized from the prior rate structure was that we were not fully capturing the quantity of waste. We were capturing more the cost of collection. And so that's what we're working on today. And so we're working on that. And then, Mayor and Vice Mayor, April 8th workshop is when we last came to you with landfill rates. So it was in this past year, we talked about landfill rates, and the same reason is that we want to preserve our landfill for our residents and make sure that it's there. It's an asset that we use and we manage.
But Mayor, if I could, but we have negotiated tipping fees with multiple municipalities that are not going to be adjusted until whatever the IGA that we have with them expires and we have to renew it. Is that correct? That's got nothing to do with our landfill rates, because we're under an agreement to charge a specific tipping fee for City A and City B and whichever cities that are using our landfill, that are not subject to that rate adjustment until the IGA has to be renegotiated. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
So let me, I think this would be helpful to the council, especially some of the newer council members. So let's go back to the mayor's question first, is if we're not making money, why are we doing this? So if you go back and look at the history of this, if there was a monopoly by the private sector, they essentially have an open season in terms of what they charge. So one thing that we do is by coming in and basically kind of breaking even, we make sure that Glendale businesses, especially small businesses, have options in terms of who picks up their commercial side. So a lot of it was to make sure that there's some kind of a check and balance on just because the commercial rate system, as Mike and Michelle had mentioned, they can negotiate side deals, extra deals. They can move. It's pretty fluid in terms of what they can charge. So I think the advantage when you say if all we do is break even, recover our cost, I think it's a good way to tell our business community that they have an option with the city of Glendale that's well managed, has capacity at the landfill, and is more predictable over a period of time. Now, the second question that the vice mayor asked, which is this notion of, and this is a great question because we've had these discussions my 10 years here, which is why should we allow outside entities, for example, to use our landfill, knowing that a landfill has a fixed amount of capacity? And as a reminder to the council, because we've had several discussions about rates over the period of time, what you need to, I think, contemplate. If we no longer allowed outside customers to come in and to use our facility, it would require us to get a rate increase to our residents. And there's been a reluctance on this council to see significant rate increases to our residential customers because part of those fees coming in are a way of paying for infrastructure and paying for some of the costs, which has then kept our tipping fees for our residential customers more competitive. So yes, you could say that what's more important is to preserve long-term capacity, but in doing so, we will have to change our rate structure to keep that from not needing general fund support. Or what we try to do is find that balance, is how can we be somewhat competitive so that we attract outside commercial people using our facility, because we do compete with other for-private facilities, and we try to find that sweet spot of where it helps our residential base, but still preserves us with the long-term capacity that we need. So that, just as a reminder, because I know we go a long time in between these discussions, but there is an impact. If we got out of the tipping business for non-Glendale customers, there would be an impact on our residential rates.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess at least what I'm trying to dial in is, because this is much higher volume than a residential collection. I mean, these are big containers, big, heavy construction. This is a lot more impact on the landfill than our residential collection. So I guess that's why I'm saying is that for me, I'd want to know, like, how much of this fee, it doesn't show us how much of this fee is for dumping it into our landfill. That's what my question is. I want to understand that, because it shows us all the other costs except for the actual cost of not, I mean, you can only fit so much in a residential container. It's a finite amount of, people can order, in your slide shows this, 2, 3, they can go 2, 3 times a week. This is much higher volume of waste going into our landfill. So how much are we collecting for that? That's what I want to understand. Thank you.
Mayor, yes. Mayor and Council, thank you very much, City Manager Phelps, for that. I have a question, in terms of competitiveness and being more predictable than the private industry. We had mentioned that we can't do a cost analysis with private because sometimes it's hard to collect that data. So I would ask the council if we could request a comprehensive analysis to compare our rates and our costs with the private market as well, and some of the really big retailers such as Waste Management. Thank you, Mayor.
So Mayor, again, just then as a reminder that this can change by policy direction of the council, but what has been made clear since my time here is the council has been very careful to say, we do not want our residential customers to subsidize the commercial service. So one, as Mike is walking through these costs, I mean, what we've done is segregated the cost off. We've shown what our operational costs are, what our tipping fees cost are, and we're treating this program somewhat as a standalone, so there isn't subsidy going back and forth. So we're not subsidizing the residential, but more importantly, the residential isn't subsidizing the commercial rate. And so to do that, to maintain the council's previous policy, what we're saying is there will need to be some additional rate adjustment so that we either eliminate, we don't need to have any general fund support, or we don't essentially have to increase our residential rates to offset those costs.
Right.
Mayor?
And I'm totally aware and I understand and I remember those conversations. But the question comes back, and probably for everybody, and I'm sure you've thought about this yourself, at what point, by keeping our rates a little bit lower now, because commercial's picking up some of those costs that our residents don't have to, at what point are we maxed out where now we're going to a totally different landfill and our rates really go up? How many years have we got left in this new north landfill? You know, I mean, we're gonna pay a higher fee someday. Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing is, you know, I think we just like to have a better idea. I don't want you to have to go through, you know, 1,000 hours of information to come back and, you know, as far as I'm concerned, go ahead and do your rate increase that you're looking for. But it'd be nice to have this information so we can kind of noodle it a little bit, kind of think. But how much longer is this landfill got? I know it's new, so we got 20 years in it. We got 30 years, 40 years.
Mayor and Council, to answer your question is, we do kind of a balance annually, pretty much. And so when I talked to you in 2017, our forecast for the North Cell was about 50 years. We opened that North Cell a couple of years ago. We've seen some growth. We are looking today in that 40-year type range. I do know when we adjusted landfill rates, we are seeing an increase in revenue. I can't give you a definitive amount, but we are seeing a decrease in tonnage from those customers. So the landfill rates did what we hoped they would do. And so today we can say we've got the North Cell, it's programmed out for, you know, phased excavation and lining. We've got those costs forecast out, and we've got approximately 40 years of life in that North Cell. Our landfill footprint itself, though, is not limited to that North Cell. Where the landfill administrative building is today, and then there's another building which we used to do material recovery, sorting out recycling, is also part of our landfill footprint. So landfill can extend that way, and then if ever needed, and that would be, you know, back in 2017, we thought that would be about an additional 25 years of life. So I don't know exactly what that is today. But then you also have to remember that per the EPA and ADQ, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, our landfill footprint also then extends onto the property that the landfill owns, which is on Gripstick. I wouldn't propose today we even consider that, but we do have opportunity for continued growth. But as of today, we've gotten that 40-year range left in our North Cell.
And then the additional land on top of that.
That's
so
correct,
potentially up to 75 years?
potentially.
Okay.
So I guess I just want to, I'm back to the tipping cost because it doesn't itemize it, I guess the word I'm looking for. But you're saying you've built in the diesel cost, including the cost at the landfill, including insurance costs at the landfill, and the salaries and benefits of the people who work at the landfill. That's all part of this.
So,
Is that-
Mayor,
is that how
Vice
you
Mayor
calculated
Tomaszov,
this?
I do apologize for the confusion. What I was trying to do is paint a picture of what our current rate does and how it does not cover those items that you're referring to. But I want to skip ahead to page 12 in our presentation and start talking to you about the proposal of our rate, which does cover all the things that you're asking about. But no, our previous rate did not cover many of those items that you're referring to. That's why we're looking to propose a new rate structure.
Okay.
So again, the proposed rate will simplify the rate structure and will be based on a per yard charge. So analytically, data-driven, we understand and know, we were able to calculate each of the collections, each of the stops that we do, we have an average of the number of tons or pounds per cubic yard that we service. Then we take that data and information, the number of stops that we're able to collect per day, per route, per truck. We kind of conglomerate, get all that together and figure out how much, what our possible revenue could be based on our maximum. So if we're able to max out our tonnage and yardage for each vehicle and number of collections, and then we back that into our actual costs of operations. So taking into account all of the different costs, including our tipping fees, including our repairs to our dumpsters and bins, including our new vehicle purchases, operating and maintenance expenses, fuel expenses, insurance. All of that gets taken into account when we then back in essentially the cost and our potential revenue, and that's how we came out with our cost per yard. So with a new rate structure, everything will be accounted for in that rate, and we will recover the cost, including any proposed or additional CIP needs that we may have going forward. So that's the intention of the new rate, is to include, when we do actually come back for increases, those will be included in that increase amount. So increases to our CIP, increases to our maintenance costs, increases to operations, which include our dumpster and delivery bin services. So
Two questions real quick on what you just said. How many years are you projecting at? And then are you figuring an average of a 3% cost increase per year based on just our economy and sort of how the money works?
So, Mayor, for this rate model, we took our FY24 actuals, what we ended the year on. We used that plus 5% CPI. What I've seen on several things that we have with other entities, they're using about 4.5 to 4.7% CPI on some of our increases. We used a 5% for the first year. We haven't quite got there yet. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but we're going to ask for 1 year of this the proposed rate, a 5% increase for FY27, and then we want to come back to council after evaluating the rate, evaluating where we are as far as any increases to our expenses, and then make recommendations for a 5-year plan. As this council knows, we like to propose 5-year plans so that we can base that on our 5-year projections in our budget, use that to help with our budgeting. So, but for this model, we're recommending implementing this new rate structure, coming back or having a FY27 5% rate increase, and then coming back to council with a clear evaluation of what the rate has done, how much revenue we brought in, and whether or not it's covering our cost of operation.
Perfect.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question on the simplified rate structure. So it goes from 3 rate tiers to 2 rate tiers. And so the 1s and 2s are now grouped with the 3s and 4s. So I have a question about whether that will impact the 1s and 2s, whether they're getting grouped in with the 3s and 4s, whether they're going to be getting more of an increase than any of the other tiers, since it's going from 3 tiers to 2.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Conchas. So what we had built in was a spreadsheet showing the number of businesses that we have and the number of days of service or number of containers of service they have. So when we built that spreadsheet out, essentially we used that data to show us where we needed to increase costs and what areas were actually costing us more than what we were recovering. And the customers with 2 to 3 containers were actually not recovering their cost based on the service levels. So those needed to be increased, which they went into the higher tier structure.
Thank you.
So,
Mayor?
again, the proposed rate structure.
Oh, we got another one.
So I don't have a question, I just have a statement. So basically, you're asking for a rate increase because the cost of doing business has gone up. Basically, that's what we're here for.
So,
Okay.
Well, Mayor and Council, and Councilmember Guzman, so just to be clear, we're changing our rate structure because, as Councilmember Conscious was alluding to, we might have been overcharging our small containers with 1 and 2 bins and undercharging the larger ones.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going against our philosophy of we're here to support small businesses and make sure they've got a cost competitive option. So we completely looked at this from a data thing, and we went right back to what does it cost us per yard, per service, and that's what we're projecting. So if you look at today, a 2 cubic yard going once a week is $54.96. We're proposing that going to $65. But the 6 cubic yard going once a week is going from $80 to $129 because we found that $80 container, that 6 yard container was not covering its cost and was being subsidized by the smaller ones. So we're trying to even it out and make sure that the user is actually paying their fair share.
Right, and that's the way it should be. I mean, as a small business owner, I see your increases here. We've had the same increases ourselves. So I agree with what you're doing completely.
Your smallest front load container was, you said $60-some?
So I'll just go ahead and skip on to the next page on our presentation. We do have, this is the proposed front load rates. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to get away from smaller containers going multiple times per week.
Yeah, well, I actually had a question. So
Okay.
what I was trying to find out is that $65, that's one pickup per week, is that per month charge?
Correct.
Because that actually seems really inexpensive to me. I was paying nearly that 12 years ago at my business from a private contractor. So just for whatever it's worth.
I appreciate that, Mayor. So again, we took our costs associated with our loaded cost, and then we backed it out to a per yard charge based on the yardage. You take, it's, as you alluded to, once per week. So our minimum charge to go out and collect a 2-yard dumpster is $65 per month. A 3-yard dumpster is $70 per month. From there, we want to discourage new customers from having smaller bins that go multiple times per week. We'd prefer to have a larger container at a location, and then if they need more services, we'll do a larger container more times per week, but we want to get away from the smaller services. And that's not to say that existing customers won't be able to utilize that, but we're going to try to encourage them to upsize their container. And that really allows us to control our operational efficiencies, route the customers and stops better, and then we save some money and time by not sending our trucks to a location with a small dumpster 4 or 5 times per week. So from the left, column on the left shows the number of services per week. As you go from left to right, the size of the container increases from 2 to 8 yards. And then during this rate study, we determined that, as I mentioned, our minimum fee is $65 per stop. So that is actually built into some of our additional fees that we have for going out and delivering a container, for going out and cleaning containers, moving containers on lots. We will be charging a service fee for our employee and the equipment and materials for them to go out and do those services.
Okay, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Okay.
I believe it was Councilmember Conchas that had asked about, did we know what the going rates were, with the competition, basically?
I did.
Oh, you did, okay. Without knowing that, we could be undercharging our customers, and I just think that that's important for us to be able to have that information. I'm a little confused as to why we wouldn't be able to get that.
If I could answer from my own experience, is because it's customary for a lot of companies to give you a lowball price. And once they got you, typically you don't go back every year and say, I want to see if I can get a better deal. And then they start raising it up. Next thing you know, you're paying way more. I mean, that's kind of what you guys are facing, right?
Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm looking at posted rates for a private company, and they're way more expensive than what we're charging in every single category. I mean, there's all these graphs here. So, I mean, I think it's important to know that we want to be competitive, but I mean, I don't want the margins to be so thin that, next year we're adjusting the rates again. There's a cost to staff time and everything to doing this too. So, I mean, I want to make sure, as Councilmember Guzman said, is that our rate structure, while we're still competitive and I think we still should be lower than the commercial market, but we are way lower than the commercial market. Their rates are posted, and they're way more expensive. They're not trying to, I mean, maybe they'll negotiate a lower contract, but even just their per ton charge is, this one's posted over $39 per ton. And we're proposing to raise it to 33. I mean, we could still be at 35, 36, and still be lower than anybody else can get it someplace else. So I agree. I feel like it needs to be a part of the conversation so that we're not doing this again next year and the year after that because we didn't raise the rates enough to cover cost as they increase. They're going up more than, and I agree that I'm glad that now it's going to include the tipping fees because that is part of our cost, is having waste go into our landfill. But I'd really like to know, it's not that I was able to look up a big private company's, their rates are posted. So, I think we would be able to at least get a better idea that we're still being competitive. We're still offering our commercial customers a good rate, but we're not cutting the margins so thin that we're doing this over and over and over again. Thank you, Mayor.
Now, I've got several people want to talk. Bart, did you want to talk?
Not at the moment, maybe a closing statement.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, as I've been listening to this entire presentation, I really appreciate the time and effort, the data-driven application that you put in. This is definitely doing what we talked about this morning in our ceremony, is making things data-driven. And along those points along that line of thought, you keep repeating that we try to recover our costs. So even though we may be able to charge more, I don't know that that's our role here. We need to cover our costs and provide a service that is as good as possible, but recovering the costs. And I think it's very clear to me what you've done here. And I appreciate all the effort going into really analyzing in depth, the cost of delivering these services to our business community. And I think they'll appreciate it as well because they realize those folks at the higher yardage, I think they recognize that it was a really good deal. And they're going to see an increase. Whereas on our smaller businesses, they were covering a little bit bigger of the load. And so we're going to see maybe some better adjustments for them. But as far as trying to be competitive, I think we're not trying to, I don't think, make money. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be delivering a service at our cost. And I think you've done that with these rates. And despite the fact that other companies may be charging a lot more, I think we need to keep with the model that we are trying to cover our costs. And it may require us to come back a little more often, but I think if we analyze it, and I like your proposal of doing this for a year and then coming back and seeing if it worked, and then doing that other data-driven analysis and determining that it worked or it didn't work. I really like that. So I would be very much in favor of moving forward with this proposal as you've presented it, because I think it's going to really show to our business community that we are recovering cost. We're not making a profit. We're covering costs. Thank you.
I've got a real quick question. On the roll-offs, does the city provide that with that charge? Is that something that the people rent in addition to? Do they supply their own roll-off? Because I know I used to have my own roll-off.
Mayor,
Not
we're
roll-off,
going
front
to
load.
transition from the front load rates to roll-off.
I'm sorry,
on the next
I
slide.
said
So-
roll-off, I meant front load.
So these are city-supplied bins. City owns these bins, and we provide the service. So that's why, you see the incremental cost from 2 yard to 3 yard is the $5. It's because there's still the cost of the bin in there, and that's.
Okay. But
that's
we do
part of the
not
service.
rent them to them, it's that cost is including the bin and the service.
No, that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
all
gonna,
right.
if
Okay,
there's,
Mr. Phelps.
Yeah, so Mayor, so maybe talk first, the Vice Mayor's comments. I think the team has done a great job of really coming up a way of staying more current with what our rates are, because we changed the methodology for how we establish rates. So I think going further forward, I think we can pretty well assure that it won't be a big exercise every year to make adjustments so that the revenue in equals the expenses out. So, and that's how we're treating this service today. Now, there's another question, and that goes back to the policy question. And this would be the appropriate time, in my view, to have some conversation. If the conversation is, we would like to be competitive, but not so competitive. In other words, we want to artificially establish rates that actually spin off more revenue than what our expenses are, we can do that. And you don't have to be the most expensive. You could say, we want to be 10% less than what the private sector is offering. But then understand that we only serve our Glendale businesses. And so now what we're really doing is we're telling our business community, which we don't do for residential, that we're going to set rates based on what the market conditions are, not kind of with that utility philosophy. Remember, a utility is very narrowly defined, and so like in our water service, it's always a matter of cost balanced with revenue offset by rates to recover the two. So that's, if you want to go differently on it, that's certainly in the ability of the council to do it. That would be a departure from past policy. But in terms, I think the fair question that the vice mayor asked, which I think is a good one, is will this new rate methodology allow us to stay more current rather than to have these big gaps and come back and have to make significant swings in the rates over time? We believe this methodology will be much easier to track and to establish rates every year or 2 years, so we don't have that lag.
Thank you very much, Mr. Phelps. My question is in terms of commercial. Are apartment complexes and those townhomes and things like that, are those considered commercial?
Mayor and Council, Councilmember Conscious, I hate to answer it this way, but it depends. So there is a definition of what is a commercial in state law. And so apartment complexes generally fall under the commercial. A townhome may go residential or may go commercial, depending on how it is set up and structured. So I hate to answer that way, but it depends.
No, you answered my question. Thank you. So in terms of apartment complexes, where would they fall on this chart on the proposed? Well, this is front load. Where would they fall on this chart?
Mayor, Councilmember
Depends on
Conscious,
the
it depends on
unit,
the location, number of bins they have, number of days of service they have. That usually depends on, historically speaking, the number of residents, the yards that they produce as far as waste, whether they have. One of the big things we come across in those situations is move-in and move-outs, where people are putting large items out that kind of block up the dumpster and necessitate them having more service than they probably could have if those weren't there. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. It just depends on the location, the size, and all that.
Okay, thank you. And the premise of my question is just, there's a lot of apartment complexes and renters in my district, in the Cactus District, and understanding too, if these rate increases are approved by the council and we implement them, that obviously there's a lot of people that will essentially pay for the increase. If there's 90 units, then all 90 units would essentially help pay for the increase. So that is the premise of my question is just to highlight that this will be a small increase for our apartment complexes, and so that the public understands that when we say it doesn't affect residential, we understand that the definition of residential is different than actual apartment complexes. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
On page 8 on the screen here, where you give the breakdown percentages of the 5-year rate adjustment, it doesn't show, did we lose customers when we had these increases?
Mayor, Councilmember, no, I do not have that number in front of me. I do know that we track that information, and I can get that for you, but I do not recall any significant loss in either revenue or number of customers. We tend to ebb and flow. We'll lose a few, gain a few. It's really
So you don't think that's going to be
pretty
an
net
issue?
zero over the last few years.
With this increase, you don't think that won't be an issue?
For this proposed increase,
Uh-huh.
I don't want to say we don't anticipate that. We do anticipate there could be, but we've also have capacity for some efficiencies that we've built into that. So essentially, if we lose any other customers from this proposed rate increase, we do have capacity for, or the need for, the employees in other areas where we would be able to, utilize their time at least for other things. So
Okay, because
kind of have a little bit of that.
if you're losing customers, then you're going to lose revenue there too. So I just wanted to make sure. But yeah, if you could get to me, I'm curious as to if you lost customers during that time.
So Mayor, we do now want to transition from our front-load rate structure to our roll-off rate structure. And I think this one, some council members might like a lot better because we are tying this directly to our cost per ton of waste.
Okay, so now we'll discuss the roll-off collection rates. The current roll-off rate is based on the same consultant rate study from 2010. Rate is based on a service fee. So the service fee that we currently have set up, we call it a pull charge. That includes the delivery and pickup of the container. Then we allow the customer to rent that dumpster for 30 days. After the 30 days, we do charge an additional fee. It'll be the entire pull charge fee again. If the dumpster hasn't been serviced in that 30 days, we let them know and we ask them if they want a service or if they would like us to charge them for an additional period. Once the container is picked up, we take it to the landfill, it's weighed, and then the customer is charged for the tons of waste that is disposed of the landfill. And as you'll see on this next slide, these are the current council-approved rates. You'll see the year, the pull charge, and then the per ton disposal cost. So that was the model, or that is the model that we're currently using. As I mentioned, with our 30-day current rental rate, we've noticed an issue where customers are holding onto our containers for 30 days, and then when we call them to ask if they want an additional service charge, they say, no, come on, get the container and service it for us, and we'll go to service a container and it only has 1 to 2 tons of waste in it. So we're not recovering our total cost by providing that service because the number of tons in the container are so low. So that was one of the issues we've seen. Another one is that with a 30-day rental period, we don't have containers in the yard to rent out to other customers. So we've had a few instances where all of our containers were out tied up at other services. As you can see from this slide, we do have one additional increase in January of 2026, and all the other increases are just showing what was approved by council.
Let me ask you a question. Go back to one slide. Rather than a 30-day, why don't you do a 2-week?
So Mayor, I will be proposing some changes to our current rate structure in the next couple of slides.
I'll wait.
Thanks, Frozen. There we go. Okay, so the new proposed rate addresses that issue by having a flat rate that includes a delivery and pickup fee and up to 3 tons of waste. So if you'll see on there, there's an asterisk next to the word flat rate, because I wanted to kind of describe to you what's built into that. So it's the cost of us taking a container to a location, the cost of 3 tons of waste, and then the cost of us going to remove the container. So by doing that, we're ensuring that we're at least covering, as a cost recovery fund, we're at least covering the amount of work that we're doing, and we're getting the revenue back for the amount of work that we're doing. In addition to that 3 tons, so if we pick up the container and it has more than 3 tons of waste, we will charge the customer based on the addition of 3 tons. They'll pay the landfill's minimum gate rate. We also are proposing a 14-day rental period, so 2 weeks of rental. That will help us recover our boxes sooner, be able to turn them out. In addition, we'll see more revenue opportunities based on that. In addition to that, we want to propose an additional rate, so a day rate. Anything over 14 days, we'll start to charge them a rate of rental. So we calculated out based on our fixed cost what the additional cost would be, and currently we're proposing $22 a day rental rate for that container. Hopefully that incentivizes our customers to not only utilize the service within the 14 days, but if they're going to maintain or keep that service longer than the 14 days, we're gonna at least get the 3 tons disposal cost, and then we'll have additional revenues coming in for any additional days over the 14-day period.
One
Mr.
question.
Milner.
Just a quick question. Do we have only one size of container? Is that? So how does that work into this flat rate?
So Mayor, Councilmember, Melnar, so that essentially is saying that we're covering the cost of delivery and picking up the container. So no matter the size of the container, it'll cost us the same to deliver it and pick it up. In addition to that, any size of those containers could hold up to 3 tons. So we're saying at a minimum, we're gonna charge you for 3 tons of waste. And we're gonna recover the cost of delivering the container, picking up the container, and at minimum 3 tons of waste. So that covers our cost of our driver, the equipment, operating and maintenance, fuel, of going out to the location, picking up and servicing the container, and possibly bringing them a new one, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a one-time service or it's an ongoing service. So the base rate covers all of those things.
Okay. And how does this compare to for residents, if you were to take that same container out? Because I know we offer that service. Is that still staying at the, so we're still offering that at a very competitive or low rate, I guess?
So, Mayor, Councilmember Melnar, this rate will be across the board for roll-off services. The one thing that I think, Vice Mayor Tomilchoff mentioned, these rates are more readily available. There are several private companies that advertise their roll-off rates, so we can benchmark ourselves against the private companies, and we have benchmarked our rates against private companies. We are fair, and we are able to recover our costs, and we are able to be competitive to help maintain competitive costs within the city of Glendale.
Okay, if I may, Mayor, I just want to make sure I understand the residential aspect of that. We're not talking about what you would charge a resident to do this same thing at their home?
Mayor, Councilmember Molnar, yes, this would be the same rate for residents as well.
So residents, because right now I understand there's a much lesser expense for residents. Is that, and maybe I'm misunderstanding that compared to the extra bulk pickup that you also provide.
So, Mayor and Council, Councilmember Melnar, if they want a special bulk pickup, which does not involve us dropping off a roll-off or picking it up, and we don't charge per ton, we just charge a bulk trash pickup fee. But if they are doing a remodel project and want to rent a roll-off, they do pay our commercial rates. And this, they can call other waste disposal companies and try and get that, but we're trying to be very open and transparent with it. So our residents do have options. They can call for a special bulk trash pickup, but we don't pick up construction materials with bulk trash.
Right, okay, thank you, that answers.
I have a question. On where it says disposal rate 3+ tons, what if they have more than that? What if they have 5 or 6 tons? Are you charging them per ton after that?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember, yes, that's correct. So everything over 3 tons, I'm sorry if that's confusing, the minimum, the flat rate includes 3 tons of waste. Anything over 3 tons will be charged at the landfill's minimum gate rate.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say, your staff does a really good job. I have a neighbor, not next door, but on another block, that needed to empty out a house for a family member that had passed away. And they were very, very helpful, and they gave really great advice. They said, even though they didn't think they needed such a big roll-off, they advised the person to get the bigger one with the higher box, because people will other people will fill it up for you. And then you end up having to pay the additional tonnage. So to use the ones that you have to open the back and carry the stuff in there, and that's just, I thought that was really great that staff, because most people don't have any idea how this kind of stuff works. So they were very helpful in coaching this person and saying you don't want to put something out there that your neighbors are all going to throw furniture and other things in there and fill it up for you. Put a lock on it and open the back and make it, rent a big one so it's high enough that people can't just toss stuff in there. So she was really appreciative of that. So your staff does a really good job.
Okay, thank you. I know that you're looking for consensus on these recommendations, right? Are we at that? So if we're at that point or not, let me just get this kind of off my chest. Having been around for quite some time, I remember back when I had short pants and long hair, that the Glendale landfill was, there were concerns about it getting full and us having to go way outside of town for our landfill uses. And I just can't stress how much of an asset having a in-town landfill is for this city. It's a huge cost saver for all of our residents and for our small businesses, and it just is a huge asset that it's important that we protect it, but not necessarily to the point that we don't share it with others as well. Be able to use outside income that offsets some of the costs for our residents is a plus. But anyway, I remember when we were at risk of losing our landfill capacity, and we expanded the landfill, and that was going to give us maybe another 20 or 30 more years. And that was like 50 years ago. And we still have capacity. And I guess what I want to point out is that we have and have had a great landfill team, great landfill science, great landfill management over the years that has extended the life of this landfill much longer than anybody predicted it would last when we originally moved out there with it. And I think that needs to be recognized. And, you know, we may hash over the rates and that sort of thing, but our residents and our employees need to know that that's an aspect of the city that really is a big asset for all of us, and that it's being managed, I think, really, really quite well. So I want to thank you for that.
All right, Mayor, and with that, I'd be asking for consensus on first, be asking consensus on changing the rate structure for front load service, implementing the new rate structure in early 2026, implementing a 5% rate increase of January of 2027, and then bringing a long-term rate increase forward for review after assessing the new rates for 1 to 2 year period.
Is there a consensus for everything stated above?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, I'm asking for consensus to update the roll-off service rate structure, implement a 5-year rate plan, reduce the rental period to 14 days, and base the overage fee on landfill minimum gate rates.
Have a question? Yeah. Is there a consensus for that?
Yes.
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 Bill?
So Mayor, Council, with that, our next steps is, there's a legal requirement for a 2-month advertisement. We do have to let our commercial businesses know. It has been posted that Council was going to consider this adjustment today. We will get with the Attorney's Office and determine when it's appropriate to bring this back to a voting meeting for a formal vote, and then you will see that at that time. So we just have to confirm that with our Attorney's Office, and it will be agendized in early 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
2025 National Community Survey results.
Mayor, members of the council, as we transition here for the presentation, this will be led by Department of Organizational Performance Director Jenny Durda.
All right, so Mayor and Council are, oh, never mind, they found the presentation.
Or just wing it.
I could do that. All right, so I'll get started while they're pulling that up. So as Mr. Phelps said, I'm here today to share with you the results of our 2025 National Community Survey. The agenda for my sharing with you today is we're going to talk just very briefly about why we survey. We're going to talk about the history of our surveying our residents in Glendale. I'm going to talk briefly about the survey methodology, and then I'm going to give you a very high-level overview of the results, and then we'll talk briefly about next steps for our survey results. So the first thing to talk about is why conduct a resident survey. Conducting the resident survey the way we do gives us a scientifically valid source of information about the priorities and perceptions of our residents. It helps us understand what their needs are and their opinions about us and the services we provide. There are questions throughout the survey that ask about how important a particular thing is and their perceived quality of the service. And I want to talk a little bit about that. It's important that we make a distinction between the factual quality of services and the perceived quality that our residents feel and see. An example that I like to use of this is our water quality here in Glendale. We have a water quality lab. We can test our water and we can know what the water quality is. But then we also ask our residents what their perception of the water quality is. And those two things can be different. And those two pieces of information are both important and valid and can both be true while being different. And that's an important distinction that we need to keep in mind as we look at all of the survey results. So if you recall, in 2023, we did our first resident survey. We did the National Community Survey, which is a benchmark survey that gives us comparisons with other cities across the nation that use this survey. In 2024, we did our first fully custom resident survey where we focused on questions about housing in Glendale. This year is our second year doing that National Community Survey. And the survey ran from June through August. And then in 2026, we plan to do, again, a fully custom survey. So for our survey methodology, we randomly selected 8,000 households across Glendale to participate in a scientific survey. So the thing that's important to understand about that number of people is we look at the total number of people at Glendale and say, what is the size of sample that we need to get a statistically valid results? And so that's why we surveyed 8,000 households. All these households were sent first a postcard with a QR code on it in both English and Spanish, asking them to participate in the survey. And then they were sent a physical survey packet, again, both in English and Spanish, where they could take that survey. And again, it had the QR code if they decided they wanted to do it online. Next, we had an open participation portion of the survey where all residents were invited to participate. Council, you were very helpful in posting this in your newsletters. We put it in the newspaper, we put it on billboards, we put it in the water bill we put it on social media to try to solicit participation in that survey. So from all of that, we were able to receive enough responses to be statistically valid. So what we can do is when we look at the survey results, we can say with 95% confidence that these results are representative of all of the residents of Glendale. And the survey itself is also weighted for demographics across Glendale, district, council districts, racial demographics, all those things, so that we can see that it is representative of all those different groups. So now I want to go into an overview of the results. So the report itself is 38 pages long, the main report, and we obviously don't have time in this workshop to go over every single question there. And so what I wanted to do is provide you an overview of that report and give you maybe a little information that you wouldn't be able to glean from that report itself. The report is divided into what's called 10 facets of livability, which you see here. And we'll present a comparison of the overview of these facets from 2023 to 2025 and see how they change. Each question in the survey falls in one of these facets. In each area, questions about, like I said, the importance and the perception of those areas are asked. And we can take these and we can map them directly on a quadrant to show the intersection of that importance and quality. Can you go back for me? In 2023, we had a chart like this that was shown, that showed the quality and importance. And so we're showing it again today with that detail of the change over time. So this chart that you're seeing here is the quality importance matrix. The y-axis, the up and down axis, is that relative importance. And then the x-axis, that left to right, is the perceived quality. And you can see that every single one of our items are clustered there at the top together, so that makes it really hard to see. So we're actually going to zoom in a little bit. But first I want to talk about these color quadrants we have here. You'll notice in the upper right-hand quadrant, these quadrants are created using the median values of all the scores from both years of the survey. And this helps us see how each of the items fall in relative importance to each other. The upper left-hand quadrant would be for those items that are of high importance but lower perceived quality. And you can see that it's colored red because that would be the area we would want to focus on most. You will notice that the lower left-hand quadrant and the upper right-hand quadrant are colored green. These are areas where in the lower left-hand quadrant, residents have a lower perceived importance and a lower perceived quality. So those things are lining up with each other. Same with the upper right-hand quadrant. They have a higher perceived importance and the higher perceived quality. So we're going to zoom in here so that we can see it a little bit better. And so as we zoom in, we want to keep in mind that we've chopped off a lot of the axis here. One trend that we notice overall as we take a look at this, you can see that the light blue dots are 2023 and the dark blue dots are 2025. And there's an arrow that shows the direction of the change. One trend overall that we noticed is that except for utilities, when the importance goes up in residents' minds, the perceived quality also goes down, and vice versa. When the perceived quality goes up, the importance goes down. We can infer from this that when residents find something important, they expect the services to be of a higher quality. And when we meet those expectations, then that importance in their minds goes down. So what I'd like to do next is go through each of these 10 areas and talk a little bit about what's behind it, and so give you a chance to look at that specific item with the change. One more thing of note before we go into this, because it is a benchmark survey, there are questions included about areas that we don't actually provide services here in Glendale, or that we have limited ability to influence. Even though that's the case, it's still useful information to us to understand what our residents think. So the first area is community design. This encompasses things like the design of neighborhoods, the zoning, and you can see that the perceived quality has gone down while the importance has gone up. Despite that, it remains high in perceived quality, and the data doesn't indicate any change in action needed overall in this area. The next one is economy. This area is one where, as a city, we have limited ability to impact. The questions asked about this area are things like shopping, working, and the economy as a whole. The next facet is education, arts, and culture. This is another area where some of the questions that are asked, like K through 12 education, are not under our direct control. Things that are services we provide, like public libraries, culture, art, and music activities, are also included in this area. The next is health and wellness, another area where our services are indirect or limited. The questions in this area cover things like access to quality food and health care. Our next area is inclusivity and engagement. This area has questions about how welcome people feel here in Glendale and how they feel about their connection to the community. You can see that this has had an 11% increase in importance over the last 2 years. Our next area is mobility. This area covers all the work by our transportation department, as well as some by our field operations department, from walking to driving to clean streets and lighting. Next, we have natural environment. This area has questions about water resources, air quality, and cleanliness, as well as open spaces and the preservation of natural areas. Just a couple more. Parks and Recreation. The question around Parks and Recreation encompass not only our parks and the facilities in them, but the classes provided by our Parks and Recreation Department. Next, we have the safety facet, which talks about the feelings of safety in our community at different areas, as well as the services provided by police, fire, and emergency management. And our last one here, the facet of utilities, includes some services that we do provide, like garbage collection, drinking water, and sewer services, but also include services that we do not provide, like high-speed internet, power, and gas. So in summary, based on the survey results, there are 3 areas that may warrant additional focus in the coming budget year. These are the 3 areas that fall within that red quadrant or on the line. You can see that those are safety, parks and recreation, and the natural environment. So our recommendation as you go into this next budget year and use this report to inform your decisions as we go through that process is that we need a continued and increased focus on improving the safety programs across the city. You could see that there was a significant improvement there, but additional focus is still warranted. Focus on environment in Glendale, and focus on improving services and locations in the Park and Recreations Department. So for next steps for this report, we would recommend that you, council, read the full report, and then our departments are working together on individual response plans around the questions that touch their areas. And that concludes my presentation today. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you might have.
I do have a question for you. So you had a really good response as far as the amount of people that filled out your questionnaires. Were you able to keep those separate in certain areas? Because the reason I'm asking is somebody that lives in Arrowhead may feel much safer than somebody that lives on Bethany Home and 59th Avenue. And if you're mixing those two, you're going to get a result that's not accurate. Do we have a way of saying everything south of Glendale Avenue and everything east of 59th? Can we separate that to where we can get a little bit more accurate of where the biggest concerns are? I would think that all our directors already know where our issues are. I have enough confidence in them to know that. But I'm curious if you mix those results, or if you have 3 times more people that live north of Bell Road fill out questionnaires than people that fill out questionnaires south of Bethany Home Road, you're still not going to get accurate information.
Yeah. Mayor, there are tables. We have 2 other separate reports, which we didn't provide you, which we can, that show tables that compare the results across all those demographics, including council districts and zip codes. So
That's what I'd like to.
That's exactly, we will send that on to your offices.
Okay, excellent. Question?
Thank you. I was going to ask the same thing. If the 8,000 households, was it balanced per district, meaning evenly divided, or was it a little more heavier than others, regardless of zip codes, but just kind of like also just districts? Because it may be, to the mayor's point also, that someone may say, living in Councilman Guzman's area, our parks are great because they have Heroes Park. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. But then if that's the message, is like, no, our parks are perfect. We don't need to do anything. Okay, well, not in her district, but some might need more attention. So I'm just curious if, of the 8,000 households, was it kind of even distributed per the 6 districts? I'm just curious on that.
Yeah. Mayor, Councilmember Baldenegro, the 8,000 households that we asked to participate was randomly sampled across the city evenly. Now, the responses were less than that, but again, we weighted the report to be representative, and then you can go look at those tables to see individual areas. And those tables indicate if the responses were statistically significantly different. And so if you've got questions when you're looking at those tables about how to read them, please reach out. We're happy to help you go through that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As a follow-up to that, so of course, on page 5 of the report, it has the area in the districts, but when it says unweighted, weighted, and target, can you explain to us what those mean? The weighted, unweighted, and the target?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Conchas. So unweighted is the percent participation before we do the statistical weighting. Weighted is what they changed it to be so that we're having proper representation. The target is if it were perfect in our responses, what we would want that weighting to be, what we will want it to wind up as.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The last slide says department-specific response plans. So will those be part of the department's budget presentation, or how will we receive this information?
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, what the departments are doing is they are looking at every question that relates to their department, taking a look at their strategic plan, and using it as a tool to evaluate, are we addressing these concerns, or do we have gaps and we need to adjust our strategic plan? I am sure there will be specific departments who come with individual items from their budget from that, but I can't say at this time because they're going to each working through that specifically. But it will be evaluated as part of their strategic plan and adjusting those as needed.
Okay, for me, it would be helpful for them to draw a line between requests that they're making and how it relates to the feedback we're getting from our residents. I think that would certainly make a stronger case if they're asking for additional resources to tie it back to this so we understand why they're being asked for. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Thank you.
VI shared access driveway easement and maintenance agreement.
Mayor, members of the council, here provide staff report on this site will be Randy Huggins, Director of Development Services.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were done. I thought they were.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The VI Shared Access Driveway Agreement, Easement and Maintenance Agreement is a common type of agreement in the development industry. Most commercial, industrial shopping centers, let me start over. Most commercial centers, industrial parks, and retail shopping centers have similar agreements. In 2015, the city acquired the 22.5 acres west of 91st Avenue between Cardinals Way and Montebello. And in 2024, Vi Resorts contracted to purchase 8.25 acres where they are now constructing their parking structure. The city remains the owner of the balance of approximately 14 acres. The image before you, this is a little easier to help understand what we're talking about. Cardinals Way is on the north, Montebello on the south, 91st Avenue on the east, and the black lot on the west. The areas in green are the parcels marked for future development. Those are owned by the city. The driveway up the middle, the roundabout, and the section just north of the parking structure, which is in red, those are also owned by the city, but those are the improvements that are being planned and proposed today. Notice that the parking structure itself has access points that lead to this center driveway. That would be the access points for the city-owned pieces that will be a part of the 800 spaces the city is leasing from the parking structure. In this agreement, Vi will be responsible for the cost and design, the cost of design and construction of the driveway improvements. Vi will also be responsible for the cost of routine maintenance and upkeep. And Vi will be responsible for the cost of water, power, and related utility billing. But the city remains the owner of the actual driveway, the driveway improvements, and the land beneath the driveway. So the use of the shared driveway will reduce the amount of asphalt, concrete, and paved surfaces rather than having multiple access points, which access points are where it comes in off of a road. Rather than having a bunch of access points, additional fire lanes, and driveways running across the property, this will actually consume less developable land. The shared driveway will also provide access to the city's 800 designated parking spaces that are in the northeast corner of the parking structure. The shared driveway will provide additional access to the black lot, improving the already constrained traffic flows during major events. The shared driveway will provide access to the remaining undeveloped city-owned parcels. And again, the shared driveway will increase the value of the remaining undeveloped city-owned parcels by increasing the amount of potentially developable land that will utilize those 800 spaces that we have in the parking structure. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So Mayor, I'd like to maybe back up to just one other area then is, kind of what drove this discussion and this negotiation for this. So as you look at the parking structure here, the requirements for building code would be to provide a fire aisle of approximately 20 feet around at least 3 sides of the structure. So originally we were going to sell a little bit additional land other than the exact footprint of the parking garage to Vi, and then they, of course, would go as part of their development of the garage, they would build the fire access lane around. However, they would own that road, and it wouldn't be a public road. It would be, it would be essentially a private access area. Well, the minute they did that, we know that when we go to sell the land that's vacant to the east, that whoever develops that will be required to have fire access on the west side of that property. So what will happen is if you can envision Vi having a 20-foot additional 20 feet of land, then we build a full width road access, you start shrinking down the amount of land for development, and either the city would have to pay for that roadway, or the developer would pay for that roadway. Either way, it will affect the ultimate value in that land. So what we did is we went back, and I think this is a real, probably one of the, I think, most favorable arrangements for our citizens and for the city. What we did is we said to Vi, we do not want to shrink our future development parcel greatly. So we worked out an opportunity where we would own the land, we would shrink down the amount of land that Vi was going to purchase. So now I think they own approximately 5 feet or 7 feet beyond the footprint of their building. We would then allow a road to be constructed on city land that would go between Montebello to Cardinals Way, and then as you can see from the depiction here, from the northeast corner of the garage to the black lot. We would allow the land for that, but we would ask them to build that for the city, and not only build it to our specifications, but then they would put in sidewalks, landscaping. They would do all of the general maintenance and upkeep of the road permanently. So it's a permanent requirement. If landscaping dies away, they'd have to replace landscaping. All of it would be designed to our standard. So let's walk through just the pure capital costs for a second. The amount of land that we shrunk down in our transaction with Vi was approximately 20,000 square feet. The actual number is 20,640 square feet. So that's that. We shrunk it down from a 15-foot wide aisle down to 7 feet, actually from 20 down to the 7 feet around the building. We sold the property for $21 a foot. So roughly what the value of the land that we did not receive value for was about $371,000. It was roughly, $437,000. That's the $21 a foot that we sold. So I'm trying not to get you too many numbers here. So we now have the Vi Resort has just given us an estimate, a detailed estimate of what the cost will be to build the road. Again, we're going to own the road. It'll be on our land. And that amount, everything from the paving, site work, utilities, easements, all the things that are needed comes in right just a hair over $3 million. So just in pure capital cost, we're getting a $3 million roadway to help improve circulation and viability of our remaining 14 acres of land. That in of itself is a tremendous value for the city. And then on top of that, they're agreeing to come in and to do all the long-term maintenance. Now, what's not included would be if it reaches the end of its useful life, that would require, say, a mill and overlay in 25 or 30 years. That would just be a part of a CIP for the city. But all other costs associated with that will be borne by the resort. So what we wind up with is this: a wider development parcel, which means we'll have more options on what can fit and go into the land east of the roadway. We receive a $3 million road built to our specifications that we will own and that they will maintain. And then finally, and then what we don't get then is we had shrunk down our footprint down by approximately $437,000. So we think this is an outstanding opportunity for the city. This agreement, as Randy said, we have these in Westgate, along in front of the Renaissance Hotel. City owns that roadway, and then we have a shared access agreement. This is what this agreement does here. And so with that was kind of the back channel on how we got to here, and I'll be glad to answer any questions between Randy and myself that you might have.
Well, my first question is the property to the east, the property to the north. That road will be sufficient for access, ingress, egress to that, whoever the new property owners end up being? That won't create a conflict or a problem?
That's correct. If you notice, it's actually a 3-lane road. We specified 3-lane because under heavy use of, say, ingress, if we're loading people into the black lot for a major event that's taking place, we want the ability to go 2 lanes in one direction, and then for ingress, and then for egress, you could also configure 2 lanes coming out of that. So it's a 3-lane road, and then we control in the agreement, we can cut an access point into that road anywhere we need once we understand what the development is that's going in on the east side. So we have total flexibility to design additional roads that will connect to that for circulation purposes. As well, we maintain the right to remove the northern spur off of the roundabout. Let's say we had a developer that the city engages with that wants to have a larger parcel. You could remove that parcel and then create just one large parcel. So it gives us a lot of flexibility in how we develop that going forward. The roadway is designed with landscaping and signage and all the things that are needed there. They have to put in some control arms as it goes into the black lot, because when the Cardinals and or the stadium have a mega event going on, they have to have complete security. So then there will be gated arms that would go down there so that when we turn the lot over on game day or on event day, that they can then determine how they want to have cars come in and out of there. So there's a number of parts here. It gives us great circulation. It also preserves. So if you look at the colored area in the parking garage, that's where the primary 600 cars are located at, that we have full-time access to. And so we've also guaranteed to make sure that we've got easy access for both the city and for our future developments along the east side to be able to get in and out of the garage conveniently.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Mayor. So how's this going to work on, I know we're not allowed to provide parking on game day. I mean, addition, that's not included in the 11,000 spaces we're obligated to. So how are they going to restrict this parking garage now that it's accessible for people going in there on game day? Because we're not allowed to provide additional parking on game day, right?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that's not quite correct. What the city couldn't do is take our 600, or actually during the day, because during the day, the 800 spaces that we have, and we cannot offer those up as competing. That's part of our agreement that we had with,
Right.
But the Via Resort is a private entity. This is a privately owned facility, and they will have the ability to rent parking out how they see fit. But what they really need to have is on game day, when the black lot is not available, they obviously want to maintain operations in the resort. So they're not going to be aggressively out trying to get football fans to park there. They're trying to preserve capacity for their guests that are going to the resort.
So I guess so my question is then this is going to have to be incorporated into the game day traffic plan somehow with our transportation and public safety folk, because I know they load the black lot from south to north. At least that's how they've been doing it now, at least ever since the black lot was open, is they come up, you can't get into the black lot off of Cardinals Way, you have to come up from the south to the north. So I just want to understand for the traffic flow, there'll have to be some discussions about how the traffic flow is going to work with this additional road and with this additional parking.
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, so if you look at the west side of the parking garage, there is an existing roadway that connects Cardinals Way with Montebello. Now, those are gated, so during the course of a normal day, those are generally locked. So the only change that this agreement's doing is putting an access point at the north end of the parking garage. And as I said, the Via Resort will be required to put down gates on game day there so that the general public cannot come into the parking lot there. Other than that, there's nothing changes with the way either ASDA and the stadium or the Cardinals manage the black lot. There's no other access points that have been changed or modified by this easement agreement.
So if I wants to park people on game day in this parking garage, they have the ability to do that. They're not part of this agreement with us, or do they not have the ability to do that? I thought no additional parking could be offered.
So it's like a private business.
Okay.
Not unlike the church that offers parking up over there. Their guests have the rights to be on the roadway, to use the roadway and to come in and out. So they'll have to figure out how they want their guests to get into the garage without, getting caught up in game time traffic. But again, we're pretty comfortable
Right,
we can manage that.
Because Cardinals Way is closed from 91st to 95th on game day. Right? You can't, it's only, I think it's only, right? Yeah. Right. So they'll have to find another way to manage. I'm just saying, I just don't want this to end up blowing up in our faces once it's done and saying they need to understand if they want to have the ability to make money and have people park in their parking garage, but they need to understand how they're going to be able to get in there and what the traffic patterns are on game day. And then I have another question is why the roundabout? I'm just curious about why did they think there needed to be a roundabout there?
Why don't you let Mike answer your first question?
Okay.
Just as a follow-up, Vice Mayor, the way this is structured is with game day traffic management will be game day traffic management, and as would be the case with any game day event, everybody out there needs to be aware of the fact that as more things come online, there will be more traffic. So there may be more changes. So even, for example, west of 91st Avenue, we have some major, I think it's restaurant development going in that will create more traffic. Everybody has to deal with how their traffic will be from a game day management perspective. That may change, but everybody needs to realize that they are responsible for their traffic, recognizing that more things are coming online. But we will work with them.
But
clearly.
they'll have to work with us because we're the ones managing the traffic though, on major arterial streets anyway. We'll need to know like who needs ingress, egress, how is it all gonna work together,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's not individual people.
So Mayor and Vice Mayor, in none of the agreements we have with VI have we promised them exclusive use or access on the roadways. The city preserves its right to, on game day, on mega events or whatever, we preserve the right to determine how cars come in and out. We can do road closures, we can do lane restrictions, we can add turn lanes, we can reduce turn lanes. None of that gets impacted by this agreement. With regards to the roundabout, so let's talk about large events that are taking place that are not related to the stadium. Remember, they're going to have an arena that can seat 13,000 people or a venue that can seat 13,000 people. The reason for the roundabout was twofold. One, you want traffic to continue to move. And so the roundabout allows for kind of seamless traffic in and out. And then we like the design element because it adds some architectural design and some landscaping that we think it will help add value to the development that will eventually occur. But it also allows you, so for example, if you look at the east-west connector that goes by the garage, you could very easily, off of that roundabout, do a parallel roadway improvement that goes all the way to 91st. Now you've created additional circulation for development within there, so it gives you, the developer, a lot more flexibility for how they would situate development and increase more density. So it was just a design element versus putting a T where you'd have a stop sign. We just felt that architecturally this was far more attractive to the area. What you'll be seeing down the road is VI is going to be spending a tremendous amount of money on landscaping their property around the garage. I mean, they're really committed to making this feel like a resort when you're at the parking garage. That was what they proposed. We think it's a really nice design element for the area.
Okay, and then my last question, Mayor, if I could, on that east-west road, it narrows at the black lot, and is that so that they can close it?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, yeah, good observation. So there's two things happening there is if somebody were to not understand that the gate's been closed, we needed a little bit more width to be able to turn cars around. So you see that a lot in like HOAs where you have a gated community, they typically will make sure they have an area in case somebody's pulled in. And so, yeah, but then they constrict it down so it'll be easier to control the access point. And if you notice, if you kind of look into the black lot, that aligns with an existing aisleway that already is there. So it was kind of an alignment issue to make sure it made sense in terms of how it flowed. We didn't want to empty traffic from there right into cars that are being parked. So it was a combination of those two items.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor, may I just,
He left. Go ahead, Councilmember Conchas.
Vice Mayor, may I?
Oh, go ahead,
just
Mike.
For the sake of the record, we're speaking about this as a road. For all technical purposes, it is a road. We are treating it as a city-owned driveway. So it's a driveway, it's not a road. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear about that because it seems like there's not distinctions, but there are some distinctions with regards to that. That's why you see some of the design elements as well. It also has to do with the future development on that property. So this is, we can say road, but I just want to make sure everybody really clearly understands this is more of a driveway as opposed to a road.
So it's not going to have a name or anything?
That's great.
You know what? I am unaware of it being named. It's not in our traffic plan. And so my understanding is it's not. And part of that, it's very similar to how, like, as Kevin indicated, like a mall or something like that, where you need cross easements at a later date. Could it be? Yes. But as of now, with this, no, we're not doing that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Conchas.
Yes, Vice Mayor, Council. There's no problem with this driveway. The only thing I have a question about is in the voting agenda, under the contract, there's exhibits, there's page 15 through 24, and they include notes on things that, maybe don't have a permit or things that need to be changed in the future. So it seems like this is unfinished. Is there a particular reason for that?
Vice Mayor, Council Member, what we have provided to you is the initial drawings by VI. And this is a unique circumstance for the city because the council has directed us that we want to look at selling this. So we're kind of in a development perspective of sorts with the city. And so what we're looking at is that it's proposed, but at the end of the permitting review and actually upon completion of construction, we will then know what the final plans are. And so we may need to actually re-record the easement once we figure out finite areas and how they need to be addressed. So noting that, what we've done is we've given you, so that you know it tonight, these are the plans that have been submitted and the notes that staff has made with regards to these plans. Those notes that you will see and the public will see are issues that need to be addressed by VI. Once they are addressed, the documents will be cleaned up, and then those clean documents will be the ones that will be used. But from a unique perspective tonight, you're not only seeing what has been proposed, you're seeing what staff comments are, because we're going to have to clean it up when it's finally completed.
Mayor, just to follow up on that.
Go ahead.
I appreciate having that inside of the packet and having this conversation in a workshop. So I appreciate that this is the first step, and then we will then in the future have the final easement. I like when we do things in pieces rather than doing it rushed. So I appreciate the way that this process is being done. Thank you.
What do you need?
Oh, that was all, Mayor.
Yep, so Mayor, so again, because of suggestions from the council over the years, it's been challenging sometimes to move something right to a voting meeting, so we wanted to workshop this, recognizing it'll be on the agenda tonight. And so that we'll be prepared to answer additional questions. I did ask it, even though we've workshopped this, we've asked it to be a separate voting item, so that'll again give you opportunities between now and then if you have questions to be able to have staff address those. And so that, I think we have what we need from this, Mayor, and so appreciate the comments.
All right, perfect. Okay. We're moving on to your report.
Okay, Mayor, members of the council, here's our city manager update. Hi, everyone. The holiday season is in full swing and we're ready to celebrate. We kicked off the festivities with one of our favorite traditions, Glendale Glitters. This Thanksgiving weekend, we hosted a 2-day event featuring a lighting ceremony, interactive light displays, delicious treats, and craft vendors. And the fun isn't over. The lights will shine every night from 5 to 10 p.m. throughout the month. You can even visit with Santa every Friday and Saturday through December 20th. The Glendale Fire Department just wrapped up its latest Citizens Academy. Community members spent several weeks learning what it takes to keep Glendale safe. They got a first-hand look at fire department operations, from hazardous materials and technical rescue to ladder operations and search and rescue. They also learned about our community education programs and heard directly from fire service leaders. It was a great chance to see how our team serves the city each and every day. Our transportation department is celebrating some exciting wins. The team was honored at the Clean Air Campaign Awards for promoting clean air, sustainable transportation, and community engagement. Patrick Sage and Kirk and Sandy Ressler brought home awards for their outstanding work, from making neighborhoods more livable to encouraging carpooling. Congratulations to all the finalists. The Glendale Municipal Airport just wrapped up a major runway upgrade. We partnered with ADOT on a new runway overlay, and the state covered 90% of the cost. That partnership saved the city millions and freed up funding for future airport improvements. The upgrade also extends the life of the runway. With routine maintenance every few years, the pavement is set to stay in great shape for about 15 years. And before I go, I want to share a personal note. Over the past years, I have provided nearly 450 biweekly city manager updates. Today's update will be my last. Words do not adequately capture the gratitude I have over the past years for having the privilege and honor of being the Glendale City Manager. Before I end this update, there are some thanks I would like to give. First, I want to begin by thanking the Mayor and Council for entrusting me with leading the incredible community of Glendale. Your unwavering support for not only myself, but for our entire team has been instrumental in the huge success that has been garnered since my arrival 10 years ago. Second, I want to thank my senior leadership team, including my assistant city managers, deputy city managers, and department directors. This organization is blessed to have so many talented, hardworking, and passionate servant leaders on staff. The respect they have earned from throughout the region is well deserved. Thirdly, I want to thank our 2,100 plus employees who show up on every shift ready to serve our community. This thing doesn't begin to work without you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Fourthly, I want to thank the citizens, civic leaders, and stakeholders here in the community. You have worked side by side with senior leadership to help reshape our city into an attractive, livable community. Rebuilding a community doesn't happen overnight. It is never an individual effort. It's about a community coming together, and you all showed up in a very big way. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wife, Linda. We rarely give enough credit to the loved ones in our life who support us every step of the way. I could not have done this without her love and support. Again, my heart is filled with gratitude for being your city manager for nearly the past decade. It truly has been a journey I will never forget.
Try to top that, Mr. Bailey.
I haven't done a report for 10 years, so it's going to start now.
You topped it.
No report tonight, thank you.
All right, next item is a council item of special interest, and this is things that the council would like to have the opportunity to indicate that they'd like to have discussed by this council in a future workshop. And we'll start with Mr. Baldonegro.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to add a item to look into doing a memorial walk at Veteranos Park to recognize the veterans. They have expressed that they would like to, and a lot of input and feedback that they want to generate some sort of memorial park with bricks and all that. They would like to see how we could get that involved or start that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Conscious.
Yes, yes, Mayor. I'd like to talk to staff in the future about digital signage in the city of Glendale. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Guzman.
Nothing, sir.
Councilmember Melner.
Nothing today, Mayor.
Councilmember Turner.
Not today, Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, Mayor, I do have one. I'd like to bring back a discussion about ride choice. I know we stood up the program December 1st and was surprised to find out that the program was stood up exactly in the same format that was the pilot that was unsuccessful. Basically, the program is requiring Glendale residents to only use the ride choice program for rides outside Glendale. So they cannot use it to take from their home to a doctor in Glendale, to shop in Glendale. They can only use it if the destination is outside Glendale. I know I was surprised to find out that's how the problem was stood back up. I know that there's, the region's going to be picking up this cost effective July 1st, but I think the council we need to have a discussion on, I think this has become a policy decision on how we're going to accommodate our paratransit riders. So I'd like to bring it back to the council for a discussion on how we're going to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I will hold my comments till tonight's meeting. With that, can I get a
Mayor, I'm sorry, I forgot to read one thing. So as per our council policy regarding the disposition of city-owned property, I want to notify the council that I have received an unsolicited offer. I will bring the information to the council in the executive session.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, can I get a motion to go into exec session?
I'll move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, vote nay. Ayes have it, do have it, so ordered. We're in recess.